right. We need to come up with a good introductory video. It is All Politics Local. It is July. It is now, it is, no, August 1st. We are on the 1st of August. And it is All Politics Are Local. And what you doing? It is All Politics Are Local.
I'm trying to put the guests back in the background so you can introduce them properly.
Okay, that's fine. All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop streaming talk show, and we have a wonderful lineup tonight on All Politics Are Local. We have we are going to be starting off with let's see,
serious conversation about Cuba and the urgent importance of Cuban solidarity right now.
And that is going to be the first thing we're going to be doing.
That's right.
Talk about Cuba and Cuba's medical brigades. At 6:30, we're going to jump on with Hasan Kirby from Men Against Domestic Violence to talk about the new initiatives that work to reduce violence and get people the help they need. At 7 p.m., we're honored to have Vivian Cox Frasier, the CEO of the Urban League of Essex County, along with Darrin, Sharif, the Executive Director of the Urban League of Essex County, Newark's Kids Code Tech House, to talk about their blueprint for advancement in a time where public funding is being cut. And this goes to what you were talking about earlier, Zaid, right? Like a lot of the progressive things, a lot of those programs that were being funded by the Justice Department are being axed out, right? And then at 7:45, we're going to have Lawrence Hamm, the chairman of People's Organization of Progress, and he's going to talk.
Got to get to the airport today to greet Chris Small coming back from being snatched up by the Israeli Defense Forces.
We'll talk about that too.
Add that to the conversation. I had to put that in there.
Okay, no, we're definitely going to be talking about that as well, because I know he was definitely there. And that's going to be part of it. And he's also going to be talking about the formation of a Black agenda that candidates need in the upcoming New Jersey governor's race will have to address, right? And then finally at 8:30, we have DJ Rhino and the state of hip hop. We're going to be talking about hip hop and what is going on. He's actually doing a contest tonight. So hopefully we'll hear from him a little later. And if we do hear from him, it will be live from where he's at. So, Zaid, that first section, very important section. A lot of people don't talk about what's going on in Cuba and why that's important and why that's important for us. So, Zaid, you can introduce us this section.
I'm very, very glad that and have both of them here. Chris Durden may join us too in a minute or two. All right, he got doubly excited when he found out that you were going to be on here. I said, "Well, get you behind on here. Let me add to the conversation. You out there doing the work too." So Obi Egbuna has given us a very powerful press conference, very participatory kind of press conference, and it's kind I like, right? On some really urgent questions around Cuban solidarity right now, and the breadth of that, what that solidarity looks like among African people here in this country. Onye, and Onye, we've been using the short version of your name. I have not said it out loud, and I want to make sure I got it right. Onye, and I had it too. Onyesonwu.
Yeah, Onyesonwu.
Onye, tell me what that means.
Onyesonwu is an Igbo name. It means who fears death. It's from
Igbo. You Igbo? Your folks from Igbo name? You just picked it out because you like it. It sound good in African. What does it mean?
It means who fears death.
Go ahead, baby. Go ahead. Now, I'm a crazy old man that does naming ceremonies. I do not know any others with that name. You picked out a very original name, and that's right on. I appreciate that. But let's jump into this because it's a lot to talk about, and I want this 30 minutes we got to be packed, hot, and heavy, right? Obi, tell us about the press conference, why it was so important for you to pull together, right? Who were some of the players in the press conference, and what should be some of our points of action coming out of that press conference?
Well, it's always an honor to be on with you, and thank you so much for the opportunity. And it's an honor to be next to a young sister of Onyesonwu's caliber. I didn't do anything. We, the Zimbabwe-Cuba Friendship Association, and the Friends of the Congo were the ones who put it together. Of course, the backdrop
Okay.
was July 26th. So for people who know the history of July 26th, 1953, the July 26th movement ignited a protracted armed struggle for the independence of Cuba. So all over the world, people had different events. Many went into Cuba to feel that experience, a privilege I've never enjoyed, even though this is our 30th year of doing work around Cuba. However, strategically, we always do post programs. So we avoid the cluster, so to speak. And so we felt that a press conference around the question of Cuba's healthcare system was of paramount importance. And the press conference had three layers and dimensions. First, the challenges that Cuba faces in the arena of health, courtesy of the blockade. So we wanted to have organizations who have an extensive track record of dealing with that, address that question. Then we pivoted to the rest of the Western Hemisphere. That is strategically an obligation we have because sometimes we fall into the trap when we talk about cultural imposition and political imposition. Many have accepted the imperialist definition of America. And since the captivity vessels commonly referred to as slave ships are nothing but the first form of public transportation, meaning we were dropped off a little bit of everywhere, North America, South America, Central America, Latin America. When any Democrat we know or any Republican we know says America and they impose that definition, it stunts the growth of our efforts in the area of solidarity and camaraderie. So we've always tried to work closely with Cuban efforts throughout the Americas. And the fact that we had to outpour from the Caribbean that we did, that was important because as CARICOM unapologetically embraces Cuba, Cuba has observer status, but not full participation status. So to suggest that Cuba is not part of the Caribbean is the equivalent of saying that Egypt slash Kemet, Libya, and Algeria are not part of Africa. So to have the Caribbean involved was important. And of course, Africa is primary to us. And as the end of the last line of Lift Every Voice and Sing says, true to our God, true to our native land. So we wanted to end the press conference with highlighting a project in honor of Assata Shakur and Pauline Lumumba that would be a healthcare project focusing on the African continent itself. So we're going to be hands-on with Cuba's healthcare efforts in Guinea-Bissau, Congo, Brazzaville, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Zimbabwe, and Eritrea, and Burkina and the Sahel region, Burkina Faso and Mali. Niger does not have Cuban doctors present. And the head of the Cuban Medical Brigade in Burkina Faso blessed us with her presence. And we will be working closely with Inem Richardson, the director of the Thomas Sankara Center in both Burkina Faso and Niger to facilitate that. So all these people were there. Real quickly, not trying to take up too much time. The fact that you had the son of Obi Egbuna Sr., co-founder of the Black Panther Party in London, igniter of the Black Power movement, co-igniter.
That's
in
your
London.
dad. I want everybody to be clear about who you're talking about. You talking about
Yes,
your own, your
my
dad.
father.
Somebody who we really appreciate and putting some work across the big pond.
Yeah, Boucar Touré, the son of Kwame Touré.
Yes.
Dr. Abeku Dada, the son of the distinguished SNCC alum and Black Power icon Mukasa Dada.
Baba
And
Mukasa.
the
Yes,
daughter
sir.
of Connie Tucker, who is often left out of the political prisoner list, even though she's the first African woman to become what we call, categorically speaking, a political prisoner. So to know that the children of those fighters came together to organize a press conference of that magnitude and stand behind a project, an undertaking with this type of scope and character, gives people a practical example of continuation of struggle, which we're always looking for, positive examples of that. Not people exploiting names, abusing names, exploiting the mileage of family members, even though they don't have any desire to really continue that work, just building a brand at the expense of their dead parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles. So the fact that we had a positive example of that. In terms of projects right away, you heard about the children of the Mass Emphasis Children's Positive Action and Creativity Youth Brigade. 2 years ago, they did a artistic expose of the Henry Reed Medical Brigade in action. So as a follow-up, they're calling on children all over the African world, at home and abroad, before July 26th of next year, to create artistic images of the Henry Reed Medical Brigade at work in their respective nations. And by next July 26th, we will have the very first all-African, Pan-African collage by children of the Henry Reed Medical Brigade. So that's one of the projects that was called for that day. The second project is part of the Society Shakur Pauline Lumumba effort, is a album in honor of Assata Shakur and Pauline Lumumba. And this will be our second undertaking in the arena of music, because 13 years ago, we embarked on a project with M1, Mutulu Olubala of the internationally acclaimed hip hop group Dead Prayers. And we did 3 albums of music called The Battle Cry for Cuba and Zimbabwe, where we had over 100 songs from artists all over the world, lending their voice to the call for the lifting of the blockade on Cuba and the sanctions on Zimbabwe. So we're going back at that again in terms of having an album. And then the third thing is we're going to work very closely with a group of medical students called the International Medical Society of Elam, which is the acronym of the Latin American School of Medicine, who are now sending brigades to nations where the Cuban doctors have a physical presence. And they are about to have one in Guinea-Bissau that arrives next Monday. So our goal is from here on out, through the Society Shakur Pauline Lumumba project, to provide additional support for them. Oh, and also Dr. Lucy Noble Perez, former New York Black Panther, the first president in the illustrious history of the National Medical Association, she was there at the press conference, who led a delegation to Cuba 21 years ago. You had Reverend Majani Dele, who used to be on the Africa desk of the United Church of Christ, the very first church in this country to hold a sermon on the role of the church in normalizing relations between Cuba and the United States of America. So when you look at and you had the Liberian doctor who guided the Cuban doctors through Liberia when they were there 10 years ago, seeking to eradicate the Ebola pandemic in Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. So the fact that we had all these people together to deal with this question, it was an honor, and we considered it our historic obligation to do so. And we're already following up. We're already in perpetual motion with the things I talked about. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and talk about what we did and how we plan to follow up. And lastly, all politics are local. We had the city council at large in Prince George's County, the largest African suburb in North America, the Honorable Calvin Hawkins there. And he said he plans to aggressively push the National Conference of Black State Legislators, the Congressional Black Caucus. And this is Malcolm 100 and Fanon 100 and Lumumba 100. Remember, Malcolm talked about controlling the politics of your community. So I just wanted to tell the Newark community that Mayor Ras Baraka, the gubernatorial candidate, was the only mayor in the United States, which means he was the only one in U.S. history that during the corona pandemic to let his Health and Human Services Division have a private conversation with the Cuban Ministry of Public Health, where they compared notes on the question of corona. So we're eternally grateful to him for that. So that's it on that one.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know if y'all processed all that. And that's a lot to process. And I wish we had more time to really break it down, but we're definitely going to have some follow-up and ongoing conversations, because that's the kind of space this is. I want to bring Onye, who is head of the national network on Cuba, and Chris Darrin, who's no stranger to us. He's literally one of our young sons in struggle right here in this area, and who's been very enthusiastically possessed about his presence and his work with the Venceremos Brigade. Brigada Venceremos. That's how I used to go down to Cuba when I was a young man, right? one of those organizations whose solidarity literally grew up with the Cuban Revolution. I want to bring you all into the conversation. Onya, we've got some, Cuba is still a target by the big bully of, that is the beast that is Uncle Sam, right? I want you to first give folks a taste on who the national network is and why we need to defend Cuba from being so targeted as a supreme matter of principle in the wake of this fascistic turn to the right. And not that, that's the ultimate thing that we're in now. We're in a bad time and scene with these crazy people in Washington, but, the folks that are not as crazy have been crazy too and crazy wrong on this question, So, and that's why we needed a national network on Cuba and a Brigada Venceremos. So give us, from the lens of the national network, why this was important, why you participated in this conversation, and the points of action that are important right now in terms of Cuban solidarity from us here in the States.
Thank you. Thanks for that wonderful question. Also, so happy to be on the call with my comrades. Hey, Chris. Chris and I actually met through the Venceremos Brigade, although I will say his reputation preceded him, his activism. So I'm one of 5 elected co-chairs of the National Network on Cuba. I'm actually the most recently elected one. I came in last fall at the fall annual meeting. But the National Network on Cuba is a coalition of US-based social justice organizations engaged in work in opposition to the US government's genocidal war against the Cuban Revolution. We know that they have been attacking Cuba economically with the illegal unilateral US blockade. We know that they have been attacking Cuba militarily with the ongoing military occupation of Guantanamo, where they are running a straight up concentration camp that is now housing Haitian migrants, in addition to Arab men from all over the world who have been kidnapped to be tortured there. We know that they are waging a propaganda war on Cuba. Right now, like the primary tactic in that propaganda war is the listing of Cuba on the State Department's list of state sponsors of terrorism, which is absolutely absurd.
Wow.
We are through the Henry Reed Medical Brigades that Cuba does not send terrorists around the world. Cuba does not send drones or bombs around the world. Cuba sends doctors and support and solidarity. And meanwhile, it's the US that has the long track record of funding and backing far right-wing forces to attempt to destabilize Cuba and to target civilians inside of Cuba. So Cuba is far from a sponsor of terrorism, but has been designated as such by the extremely cynical US government. And the consequence of their listing on that SSOT, that state sponsors of terrorism list, is essentially further cutting them off from the global financial system, from banking, from access to loans, from access to cash, which also drastically impacts the Cuban government's ability to purchase and import the goods they need to meet the basic needs of their people. And so that's why we hear about long lines for gas and food, shortages, lack in Cuba. It's not any failure of the government or of socialist policy. It is in fact a deliberate attack intentionally targeting civilians that's been carried out by the US government for decades at this point. And so understanding all of that context, the NNOC exists obviously to oppose that, but also because we have to recognize the Cuban Revolution as a vanguard in the global struggle against imperialism. Cuba exists 100 miles off the southeast coast of the United States. They have been living in defiance of consistent US imperialist attacks, been able to survive those attacks because of the socialist organization of their revolution and their society. It is an extremely important example for those of us fighting for justice in the belly of the beast to learn from. And it's literally right there for us to travel to and see for ourselves, to learn from, and to take those lessons back here so that we can build movements for social justice strong enough in the United States to contest for power. And I would say fundamentally, like that is our work. At this point in history, it is only an act of Congress that can officially bring an end to the US blockade on Cuba. But we also know that these elected officials, these Congress peoples, these Democrat and Republican parties do not work for us. They work for the ruling class. And so quite frankly, we are going to need to build a mass organized, militant, and disciplined anti-imperialist movement that is strong enough to contest for power so that these people know if they do not end this blockade, if they do not improve our conditions, we can actually exert consequences upon them. I'm just gonna be straight up. I come from a revolutionary Pan-Africanist political background, and so I'm not interested in policy
catch your breath.
or incremental change. I'm interested in an total overthrow of the
Catch your
capital
breath. I
system
want to
and learning
lift up
from
what
Cuba
you're
how
saying.
to do that.
Catch your breath. Catch your breath.
So would it helpful to talk about
Can you hear
ongoing
me?
campaigns of the NNOC?
Yeah. Okay. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought that you couldn't hear me.
Oh, you muted.
Because I wanted to lift up the back, and just the two of you.
I can't hear anything. Is it me?
I can hear you, Zaid. Can you hear?
I hear everybody. Right?
Can everyone hear Zaid? Lift your
He's
thumbs
not.
up if you can hear Zaid.
Onye's having trouble hearing us.
Let's see if it's my device.
Obi, can you hear Zaid as well?
Can you hear us now? Alan?
Can someone speak?
We hear you fine. We hear you fine.
Okay, cool. So ongoing,
we
sorry
hear
about
you
that. My
well.
speaker changed in the middle of my rant. Hopefully you heard all that. So ongoing campaigns of the National Network on Cuba. So
we heard you. You're cool. I wanted you to take
Cuba
hold on. I wanted to bring this together now, right?
He can't hear you, but can you hear me? Are you able to hear what I'm saying? Or is it just that?
Let's see.
Yeah, she can't hear anyone. So stop interrupting us, Zaid. She was on a roll.
I think
you keep going.
She can't hear.
I can't hear you.
There's a point that I was trying to make to bring because they represent two sides of a very shining coin, right? And that is the coin of Pan-Africanism, right? And I wanted to Onye, and she's gonna go out and come back in. I see what she's doing. Okay. Onye is also one of our daughters in the All African People's Revolutionary Party, right? And it's really uplifting to see someone her age, and she's more than young enough to be my daughter, right? Taking such a strong role in organizations like the party, because some of us, we had Kwame Ture in the flesh, right? In a real way, right? To see another generation, right, emerge like Onye's just generation is something I wanted to just put a pin on. She does come from an organization that definitely has that character and that history, right? Onye, I'm lifting up your ties to the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the Kwame, all of that, okay? And linking that Obi is a son of struggle between Zimbabwe and England, right? Honoring that to the fullest, brought all of those forces from around the African world together in a moment for Cuba. That doesn't happen much. It doesn't happen enough from your own community here in the United States. I'm going to say that self-critically, for African forces who claim in solidarity with Cuba, we can do better, right? As the year ended, Cuba was the gateway for the end of the people of the decade of people of African descent, transitioning to the second decade of people of African descent, right? A few months earlier on here, I was in Guantanamo, an Afro-Cuban community. 75% look just like this conversation we're having on this radio show. That community is being stalked by this ugly fortress of torture that's being expanded in its use as these racists are attacking our people here in the States in the name of making America great again, making it great for crazy ass white folks. Chris, Brigada Vince Ramos, jump in. Why is this moment so important for those of us who are about Cuban solidarity?
Well, for one, thank you for for telling me to hop on the show a few minutes beforehand. But actually, I mean, Baba Zaid, you're the one that told me to go on the VB first time. But it is the longest Cuba Solidarity organization based in the United States. It's been in existence since 1969. Part of the reason why it's a member organization of the NNOC is because it's our goals are in alignment with ending the blockade on Cuba, promoting free travel, closing the concentration camp in Guantanamo and the military base there. So part of the reason why it also holds an importance is because there are several other brigades that go to Cuba, but the VB also has like a pretty structured political education factor to it. That takes people through like learning about the Cuban Revolution, working with different mass organizations, visiting and meeting with Cubans from all different levels of society, whether it be politics or culture or
down to the children.
Life. So I think that it is very important, especially if for all ages, but especially for youth to go as well. And so we do try to focus a lot of like our fundraising on that, and particularly for Black and brown working class people. We do have a local committee in New York and New Jersey that works on that as well.
So locally, right? What should be our task on hand as you see it from the lens of the brigade? Locally, what should be happening in terms of what solidarity should be look like from our community?
Well, aside from promoting it through like events and also different campaigns such as taking Cuba off the SSOT list, and sort of fundraising events that we can have like in the community to like sort of raise these issues and talk to people about Cuba and sort of destigmatize it. We do some of this work like through an organization that I work with called Build More Unity, that's based out of Jersey City, where we do try to incorporate some of this work and try to connect it also to like since it is Black August, to the long history of revolutionary movements here in the United States. Especially with solidarity with our political prisoners here in the United States. Again, they have provided solidarity for, numerous organizers and political prisoners of war, people who are at the front lines of these movements that, we often romanticize today, but, don't necessarily always fight for in the present. We have, and also we have the legacy of like even the Cuban Five, who are Cuban political activists and currently involved with groups like the international like ECAP, which is the organization that we work with the Venceremos Brigade, that facilitates a lot of solidarity work. The president of that was a political prisoner here in the United States. And so there is this sort of long history of anti-imperialist and anti-colonial movement that really bridges together, movements based in the United States, and especially around colonized people and African people and Cuba as well.
Now, where I was going with the question, so I guess we'll have to fill it in as we wind this conversation down, is that there are dozens, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but there are dozens of cities and city councils who have done resolutions just within the last several years calling for the end of the blockade against Cuba and to remove it from the state-sponsored terrorist list. And of all the cities that have, and Newark is not one of them yet, right? All politics are local. Newark is not one of them yet,
That
and our city
surprising.
council does not act like the mayor sometimes, right? But it's something that this particular city and some of our surrounding cities need to really look at self-critically and get on with. Yeah, real talk, Jonathan.
Like,
New York City.
I thought Newark was
recently
been
has.
on that for a long time. Like, I thought Newark had been on that for a long time. Like, that's not even shouldn't be controversial in certain areas.
Well, there are a couple of
Jersey
things there.
and Florida, and then OB John, I want you jumping right behind me. New Jersey and Florida are beachheads for right-wing Cubans who still want to reconquer and restore white privilege and all of that other stuff that was the order of the day before the Cuban Revolution. Right. One of the biggest white lies told about this particular relationship is that there was a such thing as democracy in Cuba before the Cuban Revolution. That's a big old white lie. Big old white lie. It was a neo-fascist state, and that they had when it was a playground for the rich in this country. Meanwhile, people were suffering like all crazy. That all get out. And that's why they rose up and got rid of them. Right. So that's the background. Right. So the reason why we haven't gotten that yet is there is political clout that many in both sides of the party, the Democrats and Republicans, are afraid to confront. Right. We have an interesting situation with this new guy Robert Menendez Jr. I want to see how far we can push this guy who's trying to position himself to the left of his corrupt father. How far to the left remains to be seen, right? But that's something to look at, and it's something to examine, and something to target. If they're gonna target Cuba for doing what all the good that it has done in the world as a beacon of international human solidarity, we need to be talking about targeting folks who represent the reaction, who represent the hostility, who represent the injustice. You know?
True, because it's like they're accusing them of exporting terror when they export doctors, and I'm just like, everybody knows they export doctors. Like what?
During the COVID pandemic, Cuba put doctors in over 40 countries, including Italy. It was the first time that they came north and helped in that whole ordeal. So it's, what are we talking about? Obi jumping, you were ready to jump in. I'm sorry.
Well, no, so I was saying that that's why in the beginning I mentioned that Mayor Baraka allowed his Health and Human Services Division to meet with the Ministry of Public Health. And that was something and also right on the heels of that, Johnny Ford, the Secretary General of the World Conference of Mayors, did a resolution calling for normalized relations with Cuba. And the state senator in the poorest district in the state of Alabama, former now state senator Malika Fortier, the daughter of Hank Sanders, wrote an open letter to her organization, the National Conference of Black State Legislators, to do that. But in terms of a local dimension, we took the diplomatic liaison to the African diaspora, Gabriela Castillo, to Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C. And for people who know the history of that school, that's formerly the M Street Colored School, the first high school for African people in the United States. And she came there and she talked about Claudio Benitez, who was the African that was assassinated, who was at the forefront of Cuba's literacy program, one of the first mass programs of the revolution. So what we've been doing is we've been looking to build ties in our community with educational institutions, the African independent schools. You have Kamali Academy in New Orleans, Louisiana, who now has a pilot in Accra, Ghana. And she spoke to those students, and they want to have ties with Cuba, which can become a catalyst for the Council of Independent Black Institutions, which are our African independent schools in this country that stem from the Black Power and Black Arts movement in the 1960s, to begin to work with Cuba for the purpose of identifying more children, as this is the 25th anniversary of the medical scholarship program being initiated based on a memorandum of understanding between the CBC and Comandante Fidel Castro. And after 25 years, there were supposed to be 500 scholarships on an annual basis. Only 245 have been fulfilled. So that is something on a local level. There are many different organizations. And as a matter of fact, Councilman Hawkins, the chair of the council in PG County, the largest African suburb, he said that he's going to push for that in PG County. And also, he could not be there, but a brother named Reverend Tony Lee of a mega church called Community of Hope in PG County, who was also on the board of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, which for many who don't know, that's the umbrella of all the civil rights organizations that we have in this country in the human rights tradition. And so we're going to meet with him so that they can become more involved in that process as well. And Dr. Robert White from Alabama State was there representing an organization called HBCU Law Review. And he was dealing with the legal aspect. And that's very important, bringing it back to the local, because some of you may know, some of you may not know. The state of Alabama has more prisoners than India and China. Alabama as a state has 297 prisons in comparison to 24 hospitals and clinics. And if you know Alabama's history, the Port of Mobile, State Senator Hank Sanders, who we mentioned a few minutes ago, the Port of Mobile, he helped open the Port of Mobile to Havana a few years ago. And at one point, Alabama as a state was sending utility poles and poultry to Cuba in a step towards normalizing relations between Cuba and the United States. Wow. So it's important for us to know as we maneuver and organize. Right. So I just wanted to mention that.
Awesome. Now, Onye, I don't know if you can hear us. I know you've been having some issues with your sound, and I know you're on the run. Onye and Obi, you both are. So I want to respect both of your time. We have a ritual question as we wind this segment down. Jonathan, you want to ask Ed? Ed, you've been quiet. You haven't said anything. You want to ask him something before we wind this down?
Sure. So, I think you all have already been on the show before, so y'all know what's going to come. So when you out there doing the work and need motivation, what hip hop song are you guys listening to that gets you all motivated? Don't go all at the same time.
I got one. Listening to it. So this is a very gay song, and I'm unapologetic about that. It's called KOC Santeria by King Kulto, and I just really appreciate it because it's a Cuban from Florida who is.
Put it in the chat so I can blow that.
A Cuban from Florida with very progressive politics, who's very who's queer, is like a political identity, which I feel like something is that has been lost in terms of revolutionary politics. Like people are queer at Pride sponsored by Bank of America, and he's queer Free Palestine and Unblock Cuba. So I just really appreciate the energy of the song.
That is awesome. Put that in the chat because I want to lift that up. Right. There you go. I definitely want to lift that up. Right. Chris, Obi's older than you. I'm gonna let Obi go first.
No, I was gonna let Chris go because I just finished talking.
That's all right.
And
I just got a text from my friend that said mention Cardi. I said hell no, but no, I want to shout out. There's a group called Rebel Diaz that they just performed in Newark a few days ago as a fundraiser for an organization called Cosecha that does.
Oh really? I didn't know that. I didn't know it was coming in town. All right, tell everybody who Cosecha is.
Cosecha is an organization that's based out of Jersey that does a lot of good anti-ICE work and tries to organize communities in defense of a lot of those anti-immigration policies. So they've been pretty active, obviously, in the last year or a few months. So yeah.
Newark is a battleground for the fight against ICE. And Cosecha's been one of those organizations representing the targeted communities, right, that ICE is messing with, right, and defending them without apology. Right, so I just wanted to lift them. We need Chris. Let's talk about getting some folks from the organization on the show. Let's make sure we do that. Right, Obi, you go ahead.
Now, my answer is going to be a little bit unconventional, but it'll make sense at the end of the day.
All the answers have been unconventional so far. That's all right.
The great Pan-African pioneer, Ahmed Sekou Touré, leader of the Guinea Revolution. He said to be part of the African Revolution, it's not enough to write a revolutionary song. You must fashion the songs with the people, and then the songs will come of themselves and by themselves. Right. So what I would say to that is the project that we're about to do in honor of Assata Shakur and Pauline Lumumba, the music that will be on there, that's the music that's going to drive us. And the fact that we have the momentum from a 3-album set of music. We had over 100 songs of music on that Battle Cry for Cuba and Zimbabwe album. It was multi-genre and it was cross-generational. And look at it from this perspective. Think of all the artists who've gone to Cuba. Harry Belafonte, Carlos Santana. Did y'all know that Marvin Gaye was supposed to go to Cuba before he was killed? So Josephine Baker, the first entertainer who performed after the revolution. And the fact that we were able to create the first set of music aimed at the blockade. Paul Robeson, before he was poisoned in the Soviet Union, had just accepted an invitation to perform in Cuba.
That's right.
So for us, it's the next project that we're going to do. And we're calling on all the artists that you all are connected to be part of that project. And I'm going to let a cat out the bag. One of the producers of this project, Richard Raw, he just sent me the trailer of the song he's going to do to introduce the project. Y'all ready for this, Newark? He fashioned it after Nas's song from the Streets Disciples album, Autobiography of Rakim. It's called The Autobiography of Assata Shakur. So this is all I'm going to do.
Straight ahead.
Yeah. So I'm already inspired by that trailer. Y'all just gonna hear it later.
Now I'm gonna add some hip hop history to this particular question too.
Even though we do have our next guest.
I know. Right? He be all right. Black August.
Wow.
No. We got it right.
Okay.
Black August hip hop back in the 90s was a bridge from our struggle here to the streets of Cuba to combat the imposition of gangster rap that the U.S. was trying to do to create some confusion on the streets of Cuba. And that was a successful project led by the Malcolm X grassroots movement, right? Children of the new African independence movement. I just wanted to bring that in. Let's wrap it up.
Matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up because when we first met with M1, he said, you finally given us an opportunity to follow up on our visit with a project.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So thank you.
It's been a blast, y'all. It's been loaded. Jonathan is right. We do have to go to the next segment. I had to.
We've got guests waiting all night. We got to respect their time. Clearly, you know Hasan Kirby very well because you were like, he'll be all right. Let's go.
One we got to have you back too, though. Good to have you. Good to see you. I'm proud of what you're doing. Okay.
Thank you.
Right, Chris, you know what to do, son. Keep going.
Thank you.
Riding. All power, baby. Right. Hasan, you ready? Are you ready?
I'm here.
This is a unique conversation and a hugely timely one, like all of our conversations that we do here. Newark is one of the vanguard cities for community-based violence intervention. We do well on it, right? A lot of cities are coming to us. It's hard work because it's work that revolves around loss and the loss of health and loss of life. It's tough work, right? For all the good that we have been doing, there's been an emergence of an area that has been stubborn, that needs attention, that has particularly sharpened since the COVID pandemic. And that is the question of domestic violence, right? And the city of Newark recently has decided that we need a fresh strategy. What can we figure out to do differently that we have not done to better address the question of domestic violence in our town, right? One of the things that is happening is that there has been a call for Black and brown men to take the question seriously and to take their place in trying to be a bridge to peace and healing and prevention that has been ignored in previous efforts. This young man who we're bringing on, Hasan, you've been on the show before, haven't you?
Yes, years ago.
Back when we've been still in the studio, right?
Yes.
Right? But more than that, Hasan Kirby is one of our sons of this work from its early days, right? One of those young brothers that the street doctor grabbed up when when both of them were coming from the inside, and Hasan was a baby back then, right? But he's been faithfully on this walk of stopping the violence, making peace in our streets very real. Key player in what is now the community safe zone, working with young heads right on Springfield Avenue, right? He's a chaplain in the work, and he's one of the lead organizers of this A Few Strong Men call, right? We had Tut on, a couple of weeks ago in the aftermath of losing his niece, right? To an insane, expression of violence, right? Hasan, welcome back to All Politics Are Local.
Thank you.
Tell us, with the time that we've got, tell us about this new campaign, how it's going, and how can the community be supportive of it?
Well, the new campaign is called A Few Strong Men Against Domestic Violence. And what has happened with this is, first of all, every man that has been participating, we meet every Monday at 6:00 on 17th Avenue, where we discuss manhood versus masculinity, We deal with the power control well, and each individual there has had a time to visit the courthouse as well as partake in the 40-hour training through the Rachel Coalition. The problem with all of this is that for those who are familiar with domestic violence and what has been going on, although they changed the verbiage to intimate partner violence now, this is something that the terminology started in 1973. Before 1973, in the 1970s, when they had a big rise against battered women movement, this is where this comes out of. The trainings are usually done by Rachel Coalition, which is a Jewish foundation. And men have never been invited into this circle because men was always portrayed as the perpetrators of domestic violence, whether it be the physical, emotional, mental, psychological, or the economic abuses. However, today we are seeing a change in that where you have a lot of men who are also being victimized and really don't complain, because when a man complains about, oh, my woman is doing this or doing that, man, you soft, man, you letting the girl do this. These are the things that's coming out. So with a few strong men, our whole goal is to educate the community and men, especially on knowing the laws of domestic violence. Now, we're not saying that we're against what's been going on, far as the women being the head front of this, but we have to get to the both sides of this coin and tell both sides of this story, because the effect of it is a ripple effect that has been plaguing and affecting our community for years. When you have a father and mother fighting and a child witness this, they usually take this behavior outside the house. And that's where we feel that this is very important to start educating our youth on. As you just mentioned, the incident that happened with the young girl, Kayla, was Tut's niece. That was domestic violence. The week after that shooting, there was another young lady who was shot in the back of the head area where it came out the eye socket, where she lost her eye. Domestic violence. Another young man was just in the hospital who was shot in the leg. So we have a lot of domestic violence with our youth right now that's taking place. And I don't know why it's an uprise and uptake with the youth, but what I'm seeing is these behaviors are coming from the lack of education that the parents have. Separate children. Mm-hmm.
Have you read a lot of Dr. Tommy Curry's work on domestic violence and the things that some of the conclusions that he had drawn? Some of those were often people who perpetrate domestic violence were also victims of domestic violence, and a lot of it is like a lot of men were raped by men and women when they were kids, and that trauma was never dealt with, and often that plays out, right? Like, so it's not necessarily about like just teach boys to be men. Often it's protect your kid from getting raped, and also like if that does happen, right, make sure that they were able to get therapy and help, and because really you're talking about trauma. And I think a lot of the trauma informed work that happens in Newark is very in line with what Dr. Tommy Curry was talking about, and that these aren't just like, it's not a question of masculinity, right, or what men think about. Most men aren't going to commit acts of domestic violence because they don't have unhealthy visions of what it is. But one of the domestic violence activists we had on the show a long time ago, she said the chief indicator for her, right, the chief indicator of whether a man would be abusive or not. Like one of the guests asked, well, how could you tell, right, like in a relationship? And she point blank said his relationship with his mother. How he looks at and views his mother is often how he will treat other people. If he is violent in those ways, that will happen because what we find is that a lot of this is trauma that's not been dealt with. So it's not necessarily like just teach your boys, it's protect your boys. And also with women as well, right? Women who perpetuate domestic violence or intimate partner violence or violence in general. A lot of it is unresolved from them being abused, them being traumatized. And I think that if we look at it as like we need a lot more counseling and therapy within our communities, because you're like, where do these anger issues come from? they are there because what goes on in our community and the traumas that we face that are unresolved. People don't get help. People don't even know, right? So there are so many women who've been abused. There's so many men who've been abused as children, as young adults, who've been raped as children, as young adults, and many young men have been raped by men and or women, right? Like if you look at the big stars, R. Kelly, we know was raped by both men and women. We know that that many rappers will talk about losing their virginity when they were 11 and 12 to women who were significantly older, right? Like teenagers, grown, whatever, right? We have Deion Coles jokingly talk about the time that he was raped at 13 by a 30-year-old woman, and he's talking about it with someone who thinks it's a joke, right? Like, so I think when we're looking at like trauma and unresolved trauma, is the conversation around like we need to really examine, unpack, identify places of trauma and help, right? Because a lot of these people who are perpetrators of domestic violence or this violence have been victims of it before. And is there any call of we need to understand, identify, and get help for victims of trauma at every call?
And that is key. The trauma starts long before. So this is the job of a few strong men, is to educate. We're not just educating boys, we're educating women and boys alike. It's not as an even playing field. But when you talk about, and I've heard it said before about, if you want to know how a man is going to treat you, look at how he treats his mother. I disagree with that theory for years. I disagree for that theory for the fact that what if this person wasn't raised by a mother? What if this person was raised in a foster care? What if this person was raised like me in the system? So I just did a news media coverage a couple of days ago where we dealt.
I was going to segue to that.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. No, come on. You lay it out. You right there.
We just dealt with this about the abuse that happens to children in the juvenile justice system. Mm-hmm. So these things have been going on for years. So my way of treating females didn't come from my lack of relationship with my mother. It came from being abused as a child in the facility.
Right.
I started looking for a love of older women because of what happened to me in that juvenile justice system. The anger, I would not have been in a juvenile justice system if we wasn't living in such an impoverished community. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about the traumas, we got to go all the way back to the beginning of where the triggers and the traumas start. My trauma has, like, your body held score. It's a book out about your body holding score of trauma. That's right. My body held score of trauma for so many years because of the fact no one knew how to deal with young Black boys or Black girls back then. They labeled you and that was it. They removed the word from our vernacular, which was retarded. Said it was being insensitive. Me growing up, I was in a car accident at a very young age. I had a period where I got a lack of what happened for a year. In that year, I don't know what happened because I was in the hospital and my cognitive reconnection didn't start. So later on, as you see, they started saying what type of behavior you may have because of blunt force trauma to the head. They did a movie on that about the footballs, people having the stuff.
Right.
So
right.
It's related to that mass shooting in New York, and it's not being attacked properly by the media, too, by the way. Go ahead.
So the traumas that our body holds and the things that we do and how we respond to trauma, it varies based on our environment. Right now, today alone, I just spoke to the children about having the heart to speak up about certain traumas so they can break the cycle. No one ever teaches us how to break the cycle. They teach us to go to school, get an education, get a job, and work for someone. not go to school if something goes on, how to talk to someone. So we have a big communication gap that also plays into this domestic violence trauma that we all display. So it's not about a person being molested or not molested, because you have many people who become batterers that never been molested, become abusers who never been molested. It could have just been the sheer behavior environment that they were brought up in. So when we talk about this domestic violence, we need to address it as such. Just like when they started saying that certain things was a public health issue in our community, violence.
Right.
Where's the root of this at? The root of violence comes from where? It comes from the traumas and the tragedies that you grow up with. One thing that we don't get is grief counseling in our community. If someone gets shot on the corner of a school, there's no bombarding of grief counselors at that school. But let it be in a suburban area, let it be in a Jewish area, you will see the whole school flooded with grief counselors who fly in from Wisconsin, wherever you want to name it. We've never had those opportunities to deal with trauma in such those ways. For us, even psychology and therapy is a taboo. Oh, I'm not going to see no therapist. Nothing is wrong with me. So these are the things that we have right now, our teenagers perpetuating. That's why it was so easy for the young guy to shoot a young girl, not just one, but twice. And like this is normal. We have normalized domestic violence. We have normalized violence to the point where you can see somebody get shot right now, gray matter all over the ground, guts and blood everywhere. And we look at it like, oh, it's nothing. Before we try to help the individual, we will pull out our phones and try to expose the individual. So these things is what we're trying to target now with a few strong men to try to change the narrative, because domestic violence is the highest thing now in our community. Violence as far as homicides and all of those things are going down.
That's right.
Domestic violence is high. Right now we have a community, we could say, we could feel what we want about other races and other ethnicities. Right now in the East War, where there's the Hispanics, the Portuguese, they have not reported one domestic violence now since ISIS. Zero. So people are being beat in their homes right now with no one to talk to, and the kids are dealing with this. The kids are having to sneak to school or go to school and can't say what's going on in the house because they're afraid of immigration right now. Kids are being abused. The mother, the father is being abused. And it's just a cycle. And we're trying to break it as much as we can. And we're on a mission right now. We're going to be in the East War. I think I had a meeting with the lady from the Ironbound section, and we're trying to set something up right there so we could even do it in Spanish and in their language to help empower the women and the men. I was at the hospital Saturday where a young lady was choked and dragged, bloody. She said she wasn't going to call the cops or say anything to the police because her and the perpetrator's mother was good friends. So these are the mindsets we have to change. It's okay to talk now. And it's our job as grown men and grown women out here to start educating these young ladies who are suffering in silence, thinking that he loves you because he puts his hands on you. And there's another cliche they say, once an abuser, always an abuser. I disagree with it. Anyone can, just like you learn a behavior, you can unlearn it with the right training and coaching.
But you know what, though, Brother Kirby,
this
is not a new behavior.
Nope.
Sorry about that, John. This is
I know,
not
but we do have our guest on for next segment.
Okay.
So
I'm just saying.
I just want to say to Kirby, this is not a new behavior, and as you know, and if you don't know, there's a brother named Jawanza Kunjufu.
Yes, sir.
Just passed away.
Right, about the conspiracy to destroy young black boys. And one of the things he said he said that, we raise our daughters and we love our sons, right? So there's a process that is missing in young black boys, right?
Yes.
They're getting loved by their mothers, so they have this whole misconcept of what manhood is, right? And so they get lost in that. And I think that we had, what John was alluding to earlier when we had Tud on and some other brothers on, we need to have this discussion. You're right. And we need to have it very publicly, but we also need to have that discussion with young men and their mothers, right?
Yes.
And we need to be able to expose them to those books so that they can go and see what Dr. Kunjufu was saying in terms of that. Because if you don't know a man, it's difficult for you to teach a young boy how to be a man if you don't know one yourself, right?
True.
So we're running out of time. You've got to come back, Brother Kerry, so
I'm here for you.
so that we can go a little deeper in this, my brother.
He was actually supposed to be with us last week. He had a domestic violence emergency he had to respond to.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm open. Just let me know when, because I want to go back into that counter the conspiracy to destroy young black boys with that kindergarten syndrome complex.
There you go.
We're on it. We're on it. Definitely.
There you go, brother. Yep.
So look forward to the next invite. I'll be there.
Jonathan, answer the
thank you.
ritual question.
Favorite hip hop artist, individual or group?
Favorite?
Favorite or the one that you inspires you?
Or maybe what you rocking through right now.
I used to rap,
Right.
so I used to rap with Naughty by Nature before they was Naughty by Nature. So we used to do shows. So I'm a rapper myself, so I don't have a favorite.
Okay. All right.
Well, what
we
you
have to talk to
listening
you about
to?
that too.
Okay,
At some point, we got to invite you back just to talk about those days.
let's do it. Okay,
Yeah, for sure.
all
All
right.
right. Thank you.
Be well. And that's my
Right on, son.
in words of my mentor, the street doctor, on the move with God.
That's
That's
right.
right.
All right.
That's right. Long live the street doctor. We miss our brother.
Peace.
All right. Peace. All right. That was another section. All politics are local. We are up now with today with a wonderful section and a shout out to a big shout out to Lisa Durden, the independent producer and journalist, for helping us put this segment together. We have Vivian Cox Frasier, CEO of the Urban League of Essex County, and Darrin Sharif, the executive director of the Urban League of Essex County Newark Kids Code Tech House. And they're going to talk about their blueprint.
Former city councilman too, by the way.
Yeah.
Brother Zaid, what's up, man?
What's going on, beloved? We see you.
Good. Thanks.
Yep.
Good,
man,
good to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember Darrin Sharif. I remember you from way back in the day, a long time ago, from running and all the other stuff that you've done. And Vivian Cox Frasier, it's an honor to have you on as well. And the things that you were trying to do with the Urban League. One little bit of a shout out. My brother does a lot of coding, even now to this day, and how he learned to code was through an Urban League program in the 90s. Darrin, when you were talking about the kids tech and teach, my brother had an entire career that was doing tech and becoming from learning how to code originally at the Urban League, and then learning after that. So welcome to All Politics Are Local, and we appreciate you coming on and what you're about to talk about.
Hey, great. Well, thank you for bringing the Urban League on. We're happy to be here.
And so you have done a lot of things with the Urban League right now. There are cuts going on all over the country in every segment. We are talking about the various cuts that have taken place to programs that are doing good things, right? We talk from whether in the first segment, whether the cuts to aid all over the world, that Cuba is literally filling the gaps of, to the various cuts for social service programs, various grants, anything that really is supposed to help people is being cut out of any type of discretionary budget. The Urban League, for the Urban League of Essex County, what is your reaction to that? How has that affected you? And do you have a way for us to, as a nation, and the people who do progressive things, community-oriented things, to move forward in spite of these cuts?
Well, I like to say to people, like, the Urban League was built for a time like this, so it's not new. So I think one thing we have to think about is that this is a continuum, and we've been fighting this the whole time. And so I've been at the Urban League about 20 years. I tell you, I've been doing nonprofit Tetris for 20 years. So it's always the case you're grant in and something else. You're looking for something else, but this environment is completely different. I mean, when you have organizations that have contracts and grants that they know they've already have, and then suddenly you find out that it's not going to be funded. And it's really the impact it's going to have on families. And for example, we have a seniors program, an urban seniors job program that helps individuals who are 55 and older get back into the labor force, low-income seniors. And we just found out yesterday, that we have not gotten our funding renewed, even though it was approved in the budget reconciliation. And that's going to impact 150 seniors. And we help those seniors. They get paid for job placement, and they help in different organizations. They build their skills, even their technology skills, so they can get back and become unsubsidized in employment. And it's a tremendous impact. And what we see with this administration is really hitting the people that have the least protection. So the seniors that are going to lose this program also at risk for losing their Medicaid, also at risk on their SNAP, also risk on even rental assistance. So it's really, the Urban League is a lot of what we do is that social safety net, and that's in tatters right now, and it's at risk. And so I think specifically for the seniors program where we are right now, we need people to call their legislators, the Congress and the Senate, and say, release those funds. Those funds were approved for these seniors, and they should release them. Because right now, the program, everybody's on leave of absence across the state. So that program funds about 30,000 seniors all across this country. So it's not just here in Newark or Essex County. 30,000 low-income seniors were basically put out on the street within the last month from this administration, when in fact it was already approved by Congress. So, that's one thing that you can do to help. And certainly all the programs we have are designed to help families advance economically. We have education and youth development programs, workforce and economic development programs. We build housing, and we provide housing counseling for families, also health equity and financial empowerment. That's the range of the Urban League's work. And so we serve from infants and toddlers all the way to seniors, and all of those programs that are at risk. We found out that families that need child care subsidies, if they have not already signed up, if they aren't signed up by August 1 today, they can't sign up. No more subsidies for them. And so they would access them through Program for Parents. They're not accessible to families. So if you have an infant that's not eligible for child care yet, and they become eligible next month, guess what? You won't get subsidies. So it's affecting families from, as I said, from the youngest to the oldest. Even after school programs have been cut. So all of those social safety nets, program that allows families to get stabilized and to advance, all of them have been at risk. And one of the biggest programs we have is our housing. A lot of people are housing. The housing is a big challenge for families right now, affordability. And, they cut rental assistance and other programs like that. So it's a tough time, but, we're digging deep. And I'll say for the seniors program, even National Urban League went through their unrestricted money to keep the seniors on for an additional month, even though the federal government had cut those funds. So we're going to do what we can, and we certainly, appreciate the support and help from the community. I know, I guess we'll eventually talk about, fundraiser that we have coming up in October, but there are many ways to help volunteer, sweat equity, make us connections for us with employers and other resources that could help the families that we serve.
I was getting ready to say that even though, right, you have said that the Urban League was built for a time like this, when there wasn't support from the federal government, when there was actually attack by the federal government in a very concerted effort, in a very concerted way. And there was a lot of institution building. And do you think that with every crisis, there's an opportunity, and that with this is the chance for us to build our institutions or rebuild our institutions, because the Urban League at once did a lot of this work without help from the federal government. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund was the NAACP Legal Defense Fund without the help of the federal government. They were tackling and taking on the federal government. Is this something that will help, especially given the amount of middle class Black people that we have now, that it will be a way to galvanize and organize? And is this proving to be something that is true, or is this something that we just have to be educated more on?
Well, I think it's a combination. So I definitely think it's true. I think don't let a good crisis go to waste. I think we're in that moment now, right? So the question is, how do we seize on this opportunity to use it to build our community? And I definitely think, when the Urban League was founded, it was founded in the spirit of mutual aid. And I say, like, at that time, we had maids and porters who built our institutions. So certainly, as you say, when you have many people who have more education, more income, more opportunity, there's no reason we can't bring those resources in. But at the same time, the social safety net, I think we all pay into it. And so we shouldn't walk away from the government's responsibility to ensure equity for our families. So yes, we want people to save. Yes, we want people to, purchase homes, to do all those things that they're supposed to do. But a lot of times it makes it seem like there's something wrong with us. And there's nothing wrong with us. That getting rid of racism won't cure, but also nothing wrong with us. And therefore, we have the right to demand the resources for our community. And we shouldn't shy away from that either.
So it's a matter of both, right? It's build and also to demand, all at the same time.
Exactly.
Now, Darrin, you work with you're executive director of a program that teaches kids tech. What is that? What kind of tech is being taught? Tell me more about this program.
Yeah, but first of all, I just want to thank you for your broadcast, because when we talk about grassroots, you appeal to the grassroots audience, and I feel like I'm having a reunion with Brother Saeed, and saw him frequently in and out of City Hall, and directly connected to the community. And so in these turbulent times, we're going to need the kind of information that we get from your broadcast. I signed on earlier, so I saw the last end of the one before us, but this is the Tech House, and thank you to Ms. Frasier for giving me this opportunity. And she came, I think, in 2003. And
I know you don't want to talk about that, do you?
And I came in 2004. Yeah. And it is, I always like to embarrass her in a good way in front of people so she can't shut me up. She really has a special collection of skills separate and apart from like a lot of people who run nonprofits. And so she had cut her teeth in high finance. And when she came to the Urban League, she used that financial skill to shore up the Urban League. But in that process, she just learned about a lot of great things that we were doing. And she lives, she breathes, she bleeds the Urban League. She's a fierce fighter. And so that when I came on, and I only came on to the Urban League because of her and her vision and what she was really connected to. But this investment in our programmatic portfolio, the Tech House, really is to address the digital divide. And when a lot of folks talk about the digital divide, they talk in terms of hardware, right? A lot of people don't have fast broadband internet access. But I say, even if they had faster internet access, would they just use it to download videos quicker, or would they leverage it to compete in an age now that is hypercharged by AI? But we started in 2015 with coding for middle school kids, and since then it was called Newark Kids Code then. And then we realized that we needed to introduce more technology, not only to kids, but also to adults. So we offer a range of programming, not just for kids, but for adults, from digital literacy to specialized industry credentialed classes like internet technology fundamentals, A+ Network Plus. We have a collaboration with Audible, and so all the AWS applications, we're going to be able to offer that to people in the neighborhood. But what, Jonathan, I think is unique about the Tech House, it's not downtown, so it's not a criticism to the technology downtown. It literally is in Lower West Ward, Fairmont. Okay. So if you're anywhere within Fairmont boundary, it doesn't take more than 10 minutes to walk to the Tech House. And because we own this facility, a beautiful restored 19th century Victorian mansion packed with all kinds of technology, we determine when it opens, we determine when it's closed. And I just urge everybody, especially in these very turbulent times, to take advantage of this important resource, because they needed to navigate through a world that's going to get increasingly more difficult. So I'm privileged to be the director of the Tech House, but all of our programs are great. And I'll just say this one more thing. Vivian said to me, we have a conversation before, she said there are safety net programs and then there are trampoline programs. And the safety net programs are these programs like rental assistance, housing assistance that we provide, so that if we didn't, people would come crashing down. A trampoline program is, once they're stabilized through these safety net programs, a trampoline programs give them skills to be able to transition from a state of emergency to get not a low-wage job, but a high-wage job, and then start to build wealth. And the biggest way, for African Americans, and we're doing a great job under Vivian's leadership, is home ownership. So I love the Urban League because we have a balance. We're here in the neighborhood. We address most of the important needs that that folks have. And like you said, Jonathan, I think this is a tremendous opportunity, given all the craziness in Washington, because it will, and I've seen it, walking up and down the streets, knocking on doors. People want to know how they can get involved, how they can work together, like how they can share resources in order to weather this storm. And we will get through this storm, and how we get through it will, in a lot of respects, will revolve around the strategic relationships and alliances that we can form, not only with corporate America and other nonprofits, but most importantly, in my view, at the neighborhood level.
And it's interesting because when you mentioned about like Darrin, you mentioned about Vivian Cox's background, one of the things that I thought is that when you've worked within institutions and you see how they function as institutions, that's information you could take back within our community to create them here. When you're looking at the way in which we've been getting funding in the past, as in we apply for government grants, we receive government grants, they're renewed, they're not renewed, etc. Do you think in the future that when we have a chance to work with the federal government for different grants, that they will be functioning more as endowments than grants? Like, as in, you would get, instead of a certain amount of money over 5 years, you'd get one amount of money that you could literally use to where the principal would be a part of an operating budget. As in, you would have an endowment for a particular worker, right? So you could have for your organization. And instead of asking for small amounts of money for year after year after year, it seems like if they start making investments on the endowment level, that you wouldn't have a situation where
Mm.
an organization would, like, because someone else gets in power, the function of that particular money grant position just goes a whoop away in smoke.
Yeah.
I think it might be a good time for nonprofits and for the federal government to start thinking in the long run about how to uh, reward, how to give in or give to nonprofits uh, things that would be for the long term, right? Like just like
You're
universities
talking about
endow a chair,
sustainability, Jonathan.
just like universities endow a chair, so that there is a professor who will teach history for
Okay.
the rest of the time of that institution. They name it after the person, etc. Is it time for organizations to start thinking about raising not money for an operating budget, but money for endowing certain functions?
So it's great you're saying that, because I'll say maybe about 8 or 10 years ago, I started trying to shift us away from the government money, because I feel like we're just like the people we're serving. I'm on that rat race trying to, get my next grant. And then a lot of times the government grants, I have to be honest, they're not to help you advance necessarily economically. They have so many restrictions and so many handcuffs of who you can give it to. So if a family's $1 over their income, they don't qualify. It's just like, I basically started saying I had enough. So we started shifting to doing more economic development projects, trying to bring in other sources of revenues, right? And so one of the projects we have now is, where Ambassador Chicken used to be on South Orange Avenue. So we're building the literacy center there. If you were to go by there, it's under construction now. It'll have the ground floor literacy center and on the up 50 units of housing above, right? So part of it was trying to shift it so we can change the way capital comes into our community and also comes into the way we sustain our organizations. And so actually, when you mentioned that whole thing about an endowed professor, I'm trying to convince people to help me fund and endow reading coaches, right? So, because I believe like reading is a civil right, and our children are not literate, and they're so connected to their phones that you can't get them to read books. And so I'm saying, with everything that's going on in the world, I said I was going to build an early childhood center there, but I said no. The third grade reading scores, I was so upset about them. I said, we've got to do more as a community. We've got to take ownership of things. So I say, own your home, own your block, own your neighborhood, but own a business. But most importantly, own our children's futures, right? So, we are building this literacy center there. I do want to have some endowed reading coaches so that a parent can bring their child in and just objectively get an assessment, know what their child needs, and to have a professional resource there to be able to, give the resources to the families, because too often we're relying on the school district to do things. And I think it's time we take ownership of education and educating our children in our own community. And the center is going to have an Afrofuturism theme. I'm really excited about it because, I want the kids to learn, to start imagining and being creative about what kind of future they have the power to create. So we're really excited about that. And I do want to have an endowment, a capital campaign. I want to endow those reading instructors mainly because I don't want reading and our children learning to read to be dependent on whether or not the state passes a budget, because they pass something, they have some money in the budget now for some literacy coaches, or the district may decide they're going to have this curriculum or that curriculum or some other, whatever. I'm saying at the same time, I just really believe it's something that's important for us to own as our own community. And so, yeah, we're going to have to do some grassroots fundraising and endow these positions so it's not dependent on the whims of government. So I don't know about the government funding and endowment. I don't want to say I'd be skeptical, but, any government funds I got, it comes with certain conditions. That's what I've seen. And are those conditions you can live with and allow you to do what you want to do as a mission. Yeah, so we do. I do apply for government funding, and I get it. And sometimes I have to, I've gotten some funds. They said for reentry. Oh, but you can't give money to the participants. But they need money, So
Right.
then I have to get money from somewhere else to give them some stipends. It's just a lot of that. So yeah, and getting endowments and capital campaigns would be definitely wonderful. So
And to some extent, to piggyback on what you were saying, sometimes there are so many government regulations attached to that funding, and if you mess up on that, you go to jail. So you
yeah.
literally have to hire somebody to just be a
Oh,
compliance officer within your organization. Is that what you found that you had to do? Like you, instead of
oh
endowing a new
yeah.
position, you have to have a compliance officer to just
Now I
shepherd you
gotta,
through all of
yeah.
it.
I have a CFO, a COO, I use a CPA. No, and you have to. I mean, you got to be really careful. And I said one thing about nonprofits, you got to eat from a certain trough, is the way I describe it. So if you get money for A, you spend that money on A. You can't say, oh, suddenly, oh, I need money over here. I'm short here for B. So our seniors program got cut, and someone said, well, can't you take money from somewhere else and put over here? I said, no, that's not the way that funding works. So yes, so compliance is a big component of nonprofits. And so a lot of people say, well, they want to start a nonprofit, but you got to understand, like, there's a lot of regulations that you have to comply with to have a nonprofit and to be in good standing. And certainly having, competent staff, a good team is important. So Darrin runs the tech house. I don't need to run the tech house because, he's running it, and, people run their programs, and, as part of that, they know their funding source and what those requirements are. So it's a shared responsibility in terms of compliance.
You mentioned Afrofuturism, and just a shout out
Yeah.
to Naseed Gifted.
Oh yeah.
He's a vice principal at Science Park High School, but he is
Yep.
also a leader in Afrofuturist
Yes.
movements in this area. He frequently goes to Comic-Con. He writes, he speaks,
Yeah.
and he organizes. He organizes kids
Mhm.
around the region
Yes.
to create using technology to create stories.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to give him a shout out. So you clearly both know who he is.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna do some of the art in the center. So once we
And I want to just mention something about Naseed. He had the comic book series, and before my father passed, he named a cartoon character in comic book after my father. I think he was like Super Steam or something like that. So I've been Naseed for a very long time, and he is a very talented brother.
And I was going to say, you get a shout out to your father. We have to do an entire show on him to talk about his impact and what he did within the city, right? Because
the
I
late
think
great
that
Carl Sharif, say his name.
Right. Carl Sharif did a lot of good work throughout his entire life in the city of Newark, and I think we have to do more in terms of respecting that history. So we have to get together just on that. I'm glad that you mentioned him. We want to segue in. Oh, I'm sorry.
But I also want to add, for full disclosure, that Brother Naseed is also the vice principal over at Science Park High School.
Oh, we already mentioned that. He's the best vice principal ever. He's exactly where he needs to be in terms of Science Park High School.
Yes, sir.
Because he does the Afrofuturism. He's awesome with children.
Absolutely.
And he's a leader in and of himself. So big shout out. He doesn't even know we're talking about him right now. But I'll have to let him know that we shouted you out big time for the work that you do. But you mentioned money and raising it. In October, you have a gala coming up. What is that gala? And talk to us about it. Is this why is this gala important? Why is it important that people come together and they give money and they have a wonderful night? Because the gala is a wonderful night. People come and celebrate and they give dough. So talk to me.
So, well, it's October 21st. It's our annual gala. We'll have it at Nanina's on the Park. It's really a special evening to bring together supporters, partners, community leaders to really celebrate our accomplishments and celebrate the accomplishments of people in our programs, as well as to raise critical funds to sustain and expand our programming. So our theme this year is centered around empowering futures, really highlighting the transformative impact of our work, and also creating better futures for children and families. And so we certainly welcome sponsorships, purchase of table tickets, in-kind donations, all levels of support. Certainly businesses can put ads in our journal. So we have a combination of ways that people can contribute, and every dollar helps. Every bit of contribution will go to helping the families and helping the Urban League continue to provide the programs that we do. And certainly like the Tech House is one of those programs where it's not government funded primarily. We had a government grant that was funding a portion of it that got canceled. So when something like that happens, you got to find some other way to fill that gap in order to be able to provide that program. And Darrin's running a summer camp now. So we have the camp goes until I think August 15th, and we're going to have an open house on August 14th. We want people to come and see the kids in action. It's 3D printing, video production, the coding, but they also get math. There's a math instructor there to strengthen their math skills. So it's a really strong program, and the kids don't pay anything to come to that program. In order to be able to provide programs at no cost, it doesn't have to be based on whether or not you qualify for income by the government or whatever. We really want to attract kids that want to learn, excited about learning, and that we can help inspire and support their tech careers. I mean, the goal is that eventually they'll be creating, maybe they'll be the next Google, owner of Google or something like that, but they won't be able to do that if we don't give them the foundation and the pathways. So I don't know, Darrin, if you have more to contribute on that Tech House and how they.
But Brother Muhammad, I want you to come every lunchtime, like they eat their lunch, but I want to give them some kind of discussion from a leader that looks like them. And so if you don't come, I'm going to hunt you down and bring you to the Tech House for lunch, and you will talk to these scholars who will be very attentive. And part of the right.
You ain't got to hunt me. I don't hide from nobody. You know that. We just got to figure out when. We'll be there.
So I will find you. I definitely will find you. Brother.
So, but I wanted to ask Vivian a question, though. Vivian, there was recently a press conference that Mark Morial did, and he was pushing back as it related to Trump's attack on the whole idea around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
And those particular policies. How much of that do you think is actually having an effect on the kind of support that you all will be getting, in light of course, PBS just lost their funding as well. So, I mean, how much of that do you think, that kind of public is having some sort of pushback with you all being able to receive the funding you all need?
Yeah, it has an impact. We're not naive about that, but we are the Urban League now. So he does represent the National Urban League. So he can't be quiet. He has to stand up and defend our communities, right? So, and we as affiliates at the local level, we get the benefit of that, and we may also get some of the negative impacts of that. We certainly see like the banks and financial institutions, or if some of them are shying away from saying things in certain ways or whatever. But the point is do you believe in diversity? Okay, New Jersey is one of the most diverse states. Do you believe everybody should have an equal and equitable opportunity, right? And do you believe that we should be in communities where everybody feels included and accepted? So if you can believe in each of those three things separately, why are they trying to weaponize putting them all together under DEI? But, it's an old playbook, and we applaud, Mark on the National Urban League, they actually have declared a state of emergency around what's going on. And he sued the Trump administration. They sued the Trump administration about diversity, equity, inclusion. It's really about all the hard-won gains that we've gotten since the civil rights movement. What are you going to do? Stand on the sideline and just let them take them and not say anything? That's just not possible. You're going to have to stand up. And if you stand up, guess what? There are going to be some consequences. But,
Right.
I say, we're big. We're big. We're in the big league. We're, this is the Urban League, not the Little League. So get ready to fight. And, that's what we're here for,
Right.
Now, when you're doing the raising of money for the gala, right?
Yes.
Do you find that there's going to be more support now? And piggybacking on that, do you
Sure.
think that there's more support for that now, or less? And are you finding an upswing? Is this current, like the current attack on Black people, the rise of white nationalism, at the federal level and the federal government, is that affecting the way that people are opening up their pocketbooks, their wallets, and they're starting to give in ways that they have not given before?
I think it's positive and negative, so you'll see more people giving because it's oh yeah, we know the Urban League needs help now. See, a lot of times before now, people say, oh, Urban League, they always thought the Urban League had a lot of money for some reason. Oh, Urban League, so I got money. No, we don't. We really don't. But so they didn't understand that need. But when some of this started happening, I started getting calls from people in the community. Is everything all right? How's the Urban League doing? So there was
no, it's not all right. We need dollars.
We do. We need dollars, right? So we need to be able to provide the programs and services that our community needs in the event that in the gap, help fill the gap. So yeah, and like you do see some corporations are moving away from galas. They don't want to support galas and things like that. But you've got to have some mechanism to bring unrestricted resources in. Because as I said, if you get government money or foundation money, they may say you can spend it in certain ways on certain things, but you may need other things. And that's where the unrestricted money from a gala gives us the opportunity gives us the opportunity to be able to support the Tech House program. If a grant gets cut, helps us. We have a program. We have a Women in Construction training program, and they're now building she sheds. And so, there's a lot of ways that we could be innovative and creative with funds that are unrestricted from like the gala. So yeah, we do need money. So our seniors program was $2.3 million. So I don't think we're going to be able to necessarily replace that, but the goal is it would be great if we could.
It's interesting because I know that some of the organizations that and I didn't realize this, right? Like in terms of these galas, some of these organizations raise over $1 million for per year, right? Just at the gala, not even anything else, by getting people to do tables, getting corporations and law firms. One organization in particular just gets lots of law firms to give to a program for kids to learn law, right? And they generally, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea they were able to raise that much money for their organization in order to do that. So these galas that you're doing are really important. And is there anything?
I haven't raised $1 million yet, though. I'm not raising $1 million at the gala. If you can,
but that's your goal.
At the gala,
let's make that a goal. That's right.
That should be a goal. We should raise $1 million at the gala.
But I'm just saying that the reason why I threw that out there is that there are. I don't want to there are programs that do far less than the Urban League that raise far more, right, at their yearly galas. And I was like, ooh, I mean, the program's cool and all, but there are a lot of other programs that do a lot more that raise a lot less. And what are the impediments to getting to $1 million galas, $2 million galas at something like this? Cause is good. We know what you do. We know it's important. New Jersey is one of the wealthiest states in the country.
For the wealthy.
You said what?
For the wealthy.
Right, right. And it's got a solid. It's also got a solid middle class.
Yeah.
What are the impediments to getting to the point where your organization, just for Essex, is able to raise money to be able to fund the programs and the reach that it
Yeah.
has?
Yeah, I would say we just brought on a fund development lead in the organization. We had not had one before. So sometimes you see organizations that are raising like $10 million. They may have a staff of like 5 or 6 people that all they do is go out and raise money. So my staff is lean. But we don't have that. I mean, everybody, the majority of the staff are running programs. If they're not running programs, then it's like the CFO, the COO, and me, and we're out writing grants, trying to, bring in the money and things like that. So I think it's a combination. Hopefully, I think National League came and did an assessment one time. They said, you must be the best kept secret in Essex County. Well, one is, what you're doing here tonight helps us not be that secret. So hopefully the more people know about what we do and they see the value in what we'll do, they'll contribute. I think the other thing is some of the galas have really high ticket prices. And so we try to have the price so that it's affordable, relatively affordable. So
you have different tiers, right? You have your middle class tier, your I'm just need to be here tier that pays for dinner a little extra, right? And you have your corporate tier that's like, hey, we're corporate owners.
Yes, but even the corporations you might not see. I like in New York. My colleague in New York, some of them they have like $1,000 ticket for their the minimum. Maybe sponsorship might be $25,000, but in Newark and New Jersey, it's the minimum sponsorship is $5,000. So the scaling is different in New Jersey than there, and in Newark, is different. I'm trying to get up to that league. I definitely am trying to get up there. Okay. Should I set up how about we don't have a $500 ticket? I think we have a $300 ticket, don't we, Darrin? Yeah. Is that ticket like $300? And people complain about the $300 tickets. I saw, I can raise more money if I could raise my tickets. I can raise more money if I can get more ads. So I do think like folks can put an ad in the journal, maybe honor their mother, put an ad in the journal. If they have a business, put an ad in the journal. Those are lower cost entry points, and there's no limit on how many we can get. So it's almost like, Obama had a lot of small dollar donors.
Right.
Yes.
And you could raise a lot of money. And raise a lot of money. Yeah. So we would want to do that too. Have entry points where anybody that wants to give or participate has a way to do it, and nobody feels like they haven't given enough to be part of the Urban League. So this is an entire community, and as you mentioned before, Jonathan, about middle class, wealthy people, low income families. This moment we're in, it's a time for us to be more connected as a community of Black people,
more
because
ready and willing to sacrifice.
Right. Exactly.
Let me ask you this very quick.
Do we have a flyer for the gala that we can post?
Yes.
So I put it in the chat, and I put the link up on the page. Start us off on that. But I was going to ask you this.
Sure.
We have a new public safety complex named after none other than your founder,
William Ashby.
Yes. What kind of engagement have you had with the complex and with everybody and all that traffic that goes through that complex?
That's a good idea. I want to think about that.
Should we be talking about some kind of informational engagement to get the players in those spaces to give back to this institution that Mr. Ashby brought us?
Agreed. Yeah, that's a good idea. I was thinking. So we'll have our annual meeting coming up in September, And I was thinking maybe I'll do it at like the William Ashby Center or somewhere, right? One, it gives us an opportunity to talk about our results and what we've achieved, but also our vision for the future, and also, what we're up against, I think, and how people can be connected to that. So I'll definitely, I've been to a few things there. I'll definitely go back there for sure. Think about it. I'll follow up with you.
For all of its newness and bigness and centrality, right? It's a place that's still, from a community vantage point, it's still underutilized. It deserves more traffic.
Okay, we'll make that a priority for sure. Yeah, I know. When I saw, I said, "Oh, William Mobile Ashby." It's great. Great to see his name on there for sure.
All right, cool. And I know we're getting ready to and our end of this segment, but two questions. We are going to ask the hip hop question, but this is for a question for Vivian Cox Frasier. A question. And you don't have to answer the exact year, right? But about what year were you in New Haven, approximately? And were we
in the 80s? I'll say in the 80s. I won't say.
Was it like the late 80s?
Or I won't. Now see, now you
okay. All right. I'm just. Okay. So the only reason why I'm asking is that you look familiar, right? And we might have.
Oh, well, what's the date? What's your date? Why don't you tell me your date first?
Yeah, September 87 to 91.
Oh, wow.
New Haven is...
I wish I could say I was there that late. No.
Okay. All right. So you were.
But you are. How much before that, but definitely before that. Yeah, I was there before that. That was before that.
But everybody knows. Vivian Cox Frasier, her name precedes her and her work.
Absolutely.
One of the hardest working sisters in this city, boy, for a long time.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And we definitely want to do our part to help promote.
Thank you.
So
absolutely.
Sure, we put that up and get that going.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, well, any ideas are good ideas. So shoot them my way. We can figure out, among us how to get it done for sure. Yeah.
And of course, Darrin, I mean, man, listen, we talk about your father all the time. So all of us who have studied anything to do with election and politics, I really don't know. Well, we got some parts of, his strategy and teaching, and some of his students, who don't call themselves students publicly, but privately do. We've got some of that stuff. But it would be lovely, man, to be able to, hear from you and maybe put together some sort of book about, just the sheer genius of your father, man. Just incredible.
Yes, I greatly appreciate that. And, people ask me if I miss him, and I say no, because his lessons operate on me every single day. I can't be in a meeting, in a situation, and remember something and how he responded in that situation. And we refer to our house as the public service plantation. And so when everybody, my siblings, they fled, but watching him go to Board of Education meetings when he was the president, or when Ken Gibson came over to his house when I was young, and we'd all run around the lake. Ken would have a little staff going so slow, sometimes you think he was going in reverse. I just realized at an early age that what he did was important and that it impacted the community. And he gave everything he had and more to the community that he loves, he grew up in. And so I would love to get together another time and really just kind of share like recollections and about the work that he done. And it was a privilege for him, right, to run my campaign, and that meant a lot to me. I would not have won had it not been for him. And so, gentlemen, just let me know, and we will put something together.
Absolutely. And the last question, though, is who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group, or who inspires you?
I'm going to go with that last guest that you had. I was a rapper. So I love all the pop.
Wait.
Well, I
Seriously,
was
you were a rapper?
saying yeah. Okay. My favorite one. So this will tell you something since you're trying to figure out my age in the sly way. My favorite rapper is Gil Scott Heron.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Mhm.
And that's a good.
The
And that's
great
a good
Lawrence
choice.
Hammond
That's a
getting ready to
great
come
choice.
up behind you would agree with you.
Yeah,
Freedom ain't
absolutely.
nothing but a word, ain't nothing but a word. Yes.
Yep. Home is where the hatred is, right? And Home is one of the most brilliant songs, right? Revolution will not be televised as is
Exactly.
probably his most
Your daddy
famous.
loves you. I'm a daddy of girls.
Yep, that was great. That was great too, right? One of my
Yep.
favorites, "Peace Be with You, Brother." Right? That was.
Mhm.
I think I
Yeah.
used that at a meeting in New Haven when the black kids were beefing with each other,
Oh
and
yeah.
we played that song, and we
Yeah.
to get people to have peace, right?
Absolutely.
Just a little shout out. So thank
Yeah.
you both for
Great.
coming on. Thank you both for being here. And we have to have you both back on quite often. Honor to have both of you
Yes.
here.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Gentlemen.
Thank you.
Right on.
And
Thank you.
buy some tickets, come to the gala, sponsor the gala, October
Thank you.
21st. Oh, and the Urban League's website is www.ulec.org. You can go online, you can buy tickets, you can donate, all that good
Okay,
stuff.
well,
got it,
thank
man.
you.
Thank you.
And of course, all donations are tax
Yes,
deductible.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, thank you.
All right,
Thank
And
you.
and we will have you back on soon.
Thank you.
Thanks much.
Awesome.
All right. So that was another wonderful segment on All Politics Are Local. We know that Larry Hamm is coming up shortly to talk about the Black agenda. We know that there are a lot of things that both of you probably want to talk about anyway, right? Like you talked about, I think, Zaid, you were mentioning this before. You were talking about the young brother who is coming
Chris
home,
Small.
Chris Smalls. And who is Chris Smalls? What happened? And what happened today?
Chris Small is a promising young labor organizer. I mean, young. He's in his early 30s, right? Who several years ago, he's from Elizabeth, right next door, right? Tried to organize the first Amazon union warehouse in Staten Island. Made quite a big waves. We don't see labor organizing even reported in this modern epic in corporate media. That's a whole nother conversation that merits some other time. But in this media stingy climate for labor, he broke through and made some real waves and had people raising real questions about why is it that some of the most concentrated wealth, one of the wealthiest men in the entire world, is hostile to unionizing his labor force and letting his workers have a decent wage. There's a problem with that, right? And Chris sharpened that problem. And as such, as he became known as an organizer, he became a beacon of solidarity on other fronts. As an organizer and as just a young man of principle. Recently, he participated in something known as the Freedom Flotilla. This is an international human rights coalition effort that seeks to transport humanitarian aid in the form of food, in this particular instance, to Gaza to challenge and to expose Israel's blockading of humanitarian aid to a population that they are literally starving to death, on top of bombing, shooting, and bulldozing and all of that. And in this particular, and every flotilla has been stopped by the Israeli Defense Forces. Every flotilla participant has been brought into custody. This particular flotilla faced the same fate, but on this particular one, Chris was one of the lead voices by virtue of his profile. They wanted him to be very visible in the delegation. He was the only Black participant in the delegation, and as such, he was singled out for abuse and was beaten and assaulted when he was taken into custody and was the last one to be released from custody. And you haven't seen a single story on that in mainstream media. Not a single story on it.
Wait, so he was the first to be taken into custody, and the
He was the
last to be
only one
released.
black to be taken into custody. He was the
Okay.
last to be released. Now he was
Wow.
just released late a day and a half ago. Just got into JFK this morning. Right.
What did he report? What did he talk about in terms of his experience?
I wasn't there. I wasn't able to get there because he was originally supposed to come into Newark, and I had some issues here locally that wouldn't allow me to get to JFK. JFK is a different kind of haul in terms of transportation and getting to and fro. But I was saying that to segue, to Larry, because Larry was able to get there, right? And I would, he could definitely give us a firsthand report on it. I've been trying to get this young man connected with him just by virtue of what he does and all of the platforms that I share, and including ours. And we've got a direct line on him now. So look forward to us being able to get him on. And it's another arm of the international solidarity movement that has been growing up around the question of Palestine, right? It mirrors so much of what we went through before in the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. This particular moment brings back all kind of memories on that front. But he's a bright young organizer. We were very worried about him. I mean, dangerously worried about him because of the lack of official outcry. People like that can kind of run into the kind of fate that the late, great Stephen Biko went through. Stephen Biko was the Kwame Ture of South Africa, brilliant young organizer in South Africa against apartheid, who spearheaded the Black consciousness movement.
Right.
Beaten to death in custody. Right. We were really worried about this young man. So we're just glad that he's out, he's home.
When he was taken, I don't know if this is true, you can confirm this. Was he subject to intense brutality that people saw, or is that just something that's unconfirmed?
His co-participants reported it in. That's how we found out about it. And of course, because it wasn't reported in mainstream media, all of those links and spaces that you would associate with alternative media and movement organizations, that's how we got it out, right?
So the people who are with him, who witnessed him being taken,
beaten, they saw it. They saw it. It was a part of when he was detained, from the onset.
Whereas they weren't beaten and kicked, he was.
Not like he was, no.
Okay, and that's why people were actually worried about him and his life, because they saw the intense physical brutality that the IDF forces had, particularly toward him, that weren't toward the other organizers. He was the only one who was Black, and he was also kept the longest.
When you are in police or military custody, you are fair game to whatever can happen to you.
Right. Like there are no rights, right? Like there are no rights or things that you actually have. When you're in custody, you are at the whim of whoever is keeping you, and however much stomach they have for covering stuff up.
Yeah, it's a hell of a story. We're just glad the young man is home and in one piece, and we look forward to having him with us on this platform. This first chance we can get, for sure.
Absolutely. I know you're going to be working on that. Now, you also talked about the harshness of these cuts across the board. What are some of the things that we can look toward? Like, I know we've talked about this before, right? We talked about the levels in which, at least it seemed like in the Biden administration, they were going out of their way to fund, not out of their way, but they were doing what we had wanted Obama to do. And that's fund a lot of progressive organizations, use the money for cultural uplift, et cetera, right? What is the, why do you think that there was a disconnect between, or was there a disconnect between the organizations and people and the progressive movements that were funded by the administration and the voters who went to the polls?
I don't know if I can answer that, because I think, it's not enough. I'll just say not enough of our people came out the way they should. The Palestinian question may be part of that. It may be, I don't have a number to put on how many people chose not to vote because of the Palestinian people, but a lot did. Right? I don't know if it would have been enough to overtake a majority white vote that came out for Trump.
And force, right? Because in swing states, in many of the swing states, she did get more votes than Joe Biden had gotten 4 years earlier, or very close or more.
Briefly,
right?
to your point, two things. The Demus here, right? Just on what we do in community violence, he cut $800 million that was already earmarked to be distributed by the Justice Department around offices of violence prevention and community-based violence intervention all over the country, where it has been proven that the stuff works, has brought crime down, and should be treated with respect in a nonpartisan way.
Right.
He disallowed that money to go forward. And that's what really is called, that's what, it basically ended the life of the organization that I work for, Equal Justice USA. We're done. It wiped us out. 35 million was supposed to come to Jersey. We've got several cities that have proven that we can make peace in our own streets without the police and with only a fraction of the money. Why would you cut something like that? If anything, you should be investing more in it. And ironically, today it's reported that he fires his labor commissioner, putting out the reports on what unemployment has looked like, but he's firing people in the tens of thousands. What do you think the labor force is going to look like? You put them out of work in mass, intentionally. You're going to fire the messenger. We need to fire Donald Trump and that Congress. That's what we need to fire.
Welcome, man. Welcome, Lawrence Hamm, chairman of the People's Organization for Progress. Always an honor to have you on, man. Always an honor to have you on. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Well, let me say this, and I'm glad I got in before you guys got off the air, because I want to say this on the record, how much I appreciate all politics are local, how important this program is to our community. And I'm going to try to do more to increase the viewership for this program. You and Ed and Zaid are doing a real, all these years, and Bashir is not on now, but in previous years, the information that All Politics Are Local is bringing to our community is vital and important information. I couldn't be on with you earlier today, but because of what I was involved in, but I was listening to the program. I think I heard almost the entire program. You had a powerful program today. In just a couple of hours, you were dealing with vital international policy and domestic policy. There are very few programs that do that, period. Radio, television, for the Black community. We really lost an institution when we lost Like It Is, but I have to say, I believe that All Politics Are Local is stepping in and is trying to fill that void. I mean, to go from Cuba to domestic violence to housing construction, and the information was so valuable, and you dealing with the people who really dealing with these problems. I was I was breathless, just to see the scope of today's program. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you on behalf of the People's Organization for Progress for this program and for all that you have been doing, trying to bring our community. And I'm not just saying this, to gas you up. I think as I get older, I understand the importance of trying to make a record. I'm not going to be here. We're not going to be here forever. And so, you know, I want to make a record, you know, on how important and vital this program was. And, you know, you bring a street corner agitator like me on here, you know, to put my 2 cents in, you know, and not too many other places I could do that. So thank you, Jonathan, thank you, Ed, thank you, Zaid, thank you to your producers and your technicians and everybody that's involved in All Politics Are Local.
Well, thank you, Larry. I mean, you know,
Absolutely, thank you.
no doubt, man. It
Powerful.
speaks
Thank you,
to
brother.
the producing power of all of the people that are involved with the show. And so, you know, we thank you, man, for those compliments. And we don't take that lightly. As Zaid like to say, man, we represent the drum of our community. So,
Yes.
I mean, that's important to all of us. And I think that I think one thing is for sure, we all have grown and it is earned. I think that we have earned the credibility of our people, just being able to put that kind of information out. And you know, one of the things is for sure is that we're not filtered by anyone other than ourselves, right?
Right.
And you know that you know that, Larry, because you were involved in a conversation with Conrad that was completely unfiltered one night. So you know we're unfiltered. We filter ourselves. So you know that. So their words mean a lot. And thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you. Again, always honored to have you on because of the stuff that you do, right? And we just like, yo, man, we get to have you on to be able to have these conversations, and you know, we learn from everyone. So,
And
thank you.
let me add something. I'm gonna give Larry his honorary law degree because he keep going on saying on the record. Sounds like a number of times and know what he's talking about. I want to get my stuff on the record so I can get my objections and down the road. Just
Indeed.
On the record, we need to shout out Jonathan's sister, Annette, for the stellar job she did in putting together his narrative, his autobiography. It's a must read for anybody trying to do the history of our struggle, you know, in this period.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And Jonathan, my prayers go out to your wife. Jonathan, my prayers go out to your wife. I know that she had some challenges and that she's recovering. And I want you to know that, you know, I was informed and I was sending up my prayers, you know, and meditations for her.
And we appreciate the prayers, and she's doing well, right? Like the miracle of modern medicine, man, and it is had you know, very serious surgery and recovered, right? And we'll be, you know, heading back to work, right? And so that it is a miracle of modern medicine. Thank God, and all the prayers have been answered. And I am very grateful that I was very worried, right? We went on a honeymoon and come back for the surgery. And I was very worried, but very grateful that she is okay, healthy, and everything went very, very well. So thank you for your prayers. And these are answered prayers because she's doing fine. She's doing well.
Ashe.
And if I could make a recommendation, POP had as its guest speaker last night, Baba Haki R. Madabuti, who
he's been on here.
Who in decades? Oh, he's been on. Okay, then I need not say.
Again.
Yes.
But he needs to be on again,
man.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you something. I've known of Haki since I read his book From Plan to Planet in 1973, I believe. And so I've known of him, and he's a contemporary of Amiri, and he was a major force in the Black arts movement. But I did not know his personal story. When he was on before, did he give you his personal story? Man, I was dumbfounded last night. Wow. Listening to his personal story. You talking about climbing up the rough side of the mountain? I had no idea, you know, and I hope that, you know, if you bring him on again, you give him a chance, because he's writing a memoir. He's written 37 books, but he is writing a memoir, and he just ought to, because the things that he experienced, I mean, in his youth, I mean, you were talking about domestic violence and trauma today on the program. He experienced that in immeasurable amounts, you know, and I was just, I already respected him, but after I heard his story last night, my respect for him is vaulting without limit now, you know, and the fact that he's an institution builder, that he's kept Third World Press alive since 1967, you know,
Wow.
that's 58 years. You know, I've seen so many other businesses come into being and go out of business, and he's kept it going. He's still making payroll, you know, and so I'm very impressed with that brother. Despite, you know, we may have some ideological differences, but you know, when you get a certain age, some things begin to fade, you know, and you begin to see
practical, don't they?
what's really important in people. You know, just because you might not have the same ideology or same perspective as someone, it should not prevent you from respecting whatever they have accomplished that's positive and noteworthy. And you know, so I just
some
wanted
things, but
to
there's
say
a lot more you probably agree on.
that's right. That's right. But I was just amazed. He spoke to us. Now he's 80. How old did he say he was? I think he said he's 83 years old.
Looks great.
He
too.
spoke
Taking
to
care of himself.
he spoke to
Been a
us for
vegetarian most of his life.
Right. He spoke to us for 2.5 hours last night.
Wow.
Yes. That's what, and nobody was he probably could have spoke more. But you know, Dr. Kelly Harris, who had arranged for him to speak to us, you know, had shot me a note, and you know, saying, you know, the brother needs some rest. So, you know, we wound it up. And so and let me just thank brother Baba Zaid Muhammad, who got on the drum and let the community know about Chris Smalls. I was at JFK Airport today. I went, Zaid. Holly went by public transportation from Inglewood to JFK. I drove over, and let me tell you, y'all never seen me cry. I was crying today. And I'm not ashamed to say it.
That's right.
I mean, to see that brother, when he came through the doors of the terminal after disembarking from the plane, he came through. Now, you know, they beat him. The other activist said 7 IDF soldiers beat him when the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, illegally seized the boat, the Handala, illegally seized that boat in international waters. The 21 activists, including Chris, that were on that ship, were bringing humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza who are experiencing a genocide, a mass extermination, and starvation as a weapon. They were bringing aid to these people, and they seized it. And when the soldiers got on the boat, they singled out Chris, who was the only Black person among them, and they beat him. And they separated him from the rest for a time. And so, you know, one incident could have made the difference between life and death.
Got that right.
His mother was there this morning. His brothers were there this morning. at the airport. And it's funny because I had forgotten that I had met his mother previously. She was at an anti-police brutality event that we had in Englewood, New Jersey.
She looks familiar. Thank you for that.
A year ago, I believe. And I went to shake her hand to introduce myself. She said, "Oh, I remember you. I was at the rally." You know, and Chris spoke for us too before he successfully, when he was still in the process of trying to unionize those workers at the Amazon plant in Staten Island, he spoke at a police brutality rally we had right there at the Lincoln statue, because Jerry Chambers, a brother from Inglewood, brought him over for us. And so when I saw him come through there, you know, he's very tall. You don't get that in the photographs because they do like headshots, head and shoulder shots. He's very tall. Man, when that brother came through the doors this morning, now I know this may sound somewhat dramatic to people, but it reminded me of when Nelson Mandela was released from prison. They beat that brother down. They beat him bad. But when he came through the doors this morning, he was straight up and down. He was not bowed. He was not stooped over. He had his hands raised, palms together in the gesture of peace. And the several hundred activists that came from all over the country to greet him lit the terminal up. I was like, how did they get them drums in here? Past the police, past the security. Man, for a minute, you didn't know you was in the terminal. The drumming and the chanting and the singing and the flags waving and the banners flying. It was something to see. And the people that came to greet him came from all over the country. I ran into Baba Akili from Black Lives Matter Grassroots. All the way from LA. He flew in from Los Angeles just to see Chris. There was brothers and sisters that drove all the way from Boston down to the terminal. People from all over the country. It was really something to see, man. It was really something. I'm so glad I went. I'm so glad I went because, you know, I told Zaid yesterday, I said, it's going to be a challenge because you know how that traffic is. It's the airport, JFK is only 40 miles from where I live, but it's not the distance, it's the traffic. Trying to get in there, you know, but I left early this morning.
And they could have detained him when he got in. That's a wild card.
Right. And we were all on edge because first the passengers come through in a trickle, then in larger and larger groups. And then you see the stewardesses, and then you see the captain. And you know the captain is the last one to leave the ship.
Right.
And we were like, well, where? So Baba Akili had said to me early on, even before it was like time for the plane to land and all that, he said to me, he said, I hope they don't detain that brother once he lands. I mean, it was prophetic. Now, I didn't get to talk to Chris. I mean, I did get to shake his hand. I did get to embrace him, but I didn't get a chance to have a conversation. So I don't know if they really detained him or not. But, you know, we were all worried for a minute. But I told Baba Akili, I said, keep your eye on his family. If his family doesn't leave, then, you know, there's hope. That's exactly what I said. I said, there's hope. If the family, because there got to be some kind of communication. But, you know, it was something. I'm glad the brother came back alive, you know, and it was just, and I want to thank Brother Zaid again, because I couldn't get the word out. I knew what was happening. I did mention it on the show we do on Sunday. Last Sunday, I did talk about him being seized. And on Monday at the Martin Luther King Coalition meeting, I did tell people to call their federal representatives, but I wasn't able to write anything or send anything out. So Zaid did that. And I want to thank Zaid publicly for doing that to help get the word out. you know, because this brother made a sacrifice. He could have been killed, man.
Right.
I mean, he talk about put yourself in harm's way. He did that, you know, and I was overcome with emotion today, you know, to see that kind of courage and that kind of compassion, you know, not to read about it in a book, because we read about heroes and heroines all the time, but to actually see it in real time, you know, it's breathtaking. And this
And you know that history is
go
going to
ahead.
definitely be
Go ahead.
on his side with this, man, because when you're talking about the use of the term genocide, right? And it's been obviously controversial. People have been like, yes, this is, no, it's not. But now when you get to the point of the starvation, over 60,000 people dead, the sheer devastation, right? And you know, if you were debating when the numbers were at 30,000 whether it was genocide or not, I think the real question is the fact that you can call it that, the fact that it's coming up, the fact that you look at the pictures, you look at the numbers, you look like, what is it if it's not that? Is it just mass murder you're trying to defend? Is it just you want to call it mass murder? You want to call it ethnic cleansing? What do you want to call it? Right? Like, okay, you don't want to use the word genocide, so you are killing large swaths of people and objectively starving them. You've got you've got human rights organizations inside Israel calling it genocide. You've got scholars who study genocide, right, and are very much, you know, understanding the history of the Holocaust and have dedicated their life to the teaching of the Holocaust and be like, this is genocide, right? Now, when that happens, then you know the other side, the arguments sound horrible. They sound very legalistic. It sounds like, well, you know, there's a legal, technical definition of genocide, and I'm
Right.
like, wait. So let me get this right. You agree mass murder is going on, mass starvation is going on, that these clearly are human rights violations going on. You just don't want to call it genocide. What you going to call it then? So you're justifying mass murder? Are you just like it's somebody else's fault that they're being starved to death in this way? That you're literally blocking food. So I think history is going to look on what they're doing very kindly. In that, I think when it's actually written, when people are looking back at the untold numbers of dead people, when people start to go into Gaza and record the stories of what actually happened that we're not hearing right now, that we will hear, that will, because all this stuff will be documented, right? All this stuff will be heard from eventually. And it's going to be interesting because all the apologists, all the people who are like, finding any excuse to justify what happened. I think when it's, you know, when the actual toll, I hope that they are, as embarrassed as they should be, right? I hope they try to do what, you know, the racist white people did after the civil rights movement and say they were on the other side, right? Like just try to flip because they're so embarrassed, right? Now we know they jump back to that. We know that they're true selves now, right? Now that it's safer to be that. But we hope that they are as embarrassed as they should be and as ashamed as they should be, and will lie about their positions that they had.
It's something, man. It's really something that we're seeing a people who are the descendants, and some of them are not descendants. Some of them are living survivors. Remember, some of them that were in them camps are still alive. Gabor Mate, the writer, I didn't know this. I didn't know he was in the camp. He's still alive, very much alive.
It didn't,
you know,
because it's not
and
that
now
it's
they are
talking about
doing
2 generations.
right, and now they are doing to a people similarly as what was done to them. And you know, it's terrible. I, in my mind, I see when Netanyahu came and spoke before Congress, and they gave him like a 7-minute standing ovation.
Right.
They didn't even give that to the president. They
Right.
gave him a standing. And you know, when I was at Princeton, I had heard that the class of 1944 and the class of 1943 had both voted Adolf Hitler as Man of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how could they do that?
And then
But
you
then
realize, right.
I see the Congress cheering on the person who is leading the genocide and mass extermination. Now I see how it happens, you know.
Well, I mean,
mhm.
Well, I was going to say, Larry, you're a student of history, so you already do teach us how it happened, right? Like, I think one of the things I got from you is that the Germans studied the American South. They literally, Hitler sent people into the American South to learn American
Yes,
jurisprudence
Oh, yeah.
because he was looking
yes,
to get a system to oppress Jews in ways that we oppress blacks. So
yes,
literally, and it's the same ideology, right? The ideology of white supremacy in the South is the exact same as the ideology of Nazism. They are not different, right? Which is why before World War II, right, America could be very consistent with Nazism, and there's no contradiction, right? Like we have an entire history of Jim Crow South. We have an entire history of lynchings. We have a history where we made communities of Black people disappear into the dirt, right? Mass graves
right,
that are still being found, and so to understand, like, yeah, like white supremacy is a powerful drug, and I think that it functions along the same lines now, right? Like the right wing in Israel is very right wing. Like they are not they are the they are, I think, to the right of Trump, right? Like I think that we assume that they are something that they are not. When the right wing is wing is the equivalent of white supremacists. The right wing is the equivalent of like they are the people who are literally calling for genocide. Like they are literally saying, like, get them all out, right?
right.
Like that they are openly calling for them to be removed, and they don't care. And
Okay.
I
That's
don't
right.
think that, and I think that many people who are siding with the current Israeli government uh, are are I don't know if they fully realize who and what they are siding with, because like many people who are in Israel don't side with them. You have, uh, I would think, the majority of American Jews who don't side with them, right? Because
Jewish
like the
Voices
beliefs,
for Peace
right?
has been an exemplary demonstration of dissent within the Jewish community on this question. They have been doing civil disobedience, been doing, and still, even they are not breaking into mainstream media on this issue the way they should be.
I think that so many of the kids who are being arrested on these college campuses you have Jewish kids being accused of anti-Semitism, right? Because I think that the way in which the word anti-Semitism is so cynically used to describe people who are against war, who are against mass murder, who are against a state, right, that is using the tools of mass murder, really is one of those like. It's kind of like when somebody is evil knows that they're evil and they're just trolling us. Because I think that many of the white nationalists who are trying to say anti-Semitism bad in this context and are trying to call the criticism of Israel and protests against Israel, they're equating that with anti-Semitism. They are literally clowning and trolling like everybody, right? Because they're white nationalists. They don't care about Jewish people, right? They are anti-Semites themselves. They say and do
Well,
anti-Semitic things
it's going
all
to
the
get
time.
worse. Yes, it's going to get worse in Jersey because They just released a bill from committee A3558 to officially define anti-Semitism in such a way that literally any criticism of Israel could get you labeled an anti-Semite, get you fined, and even get you jailed. And that bill was released from committee, which means it's going to go to the floor for a vote. And I hate to say this, but I think that bill might get passed because
even though
I
it
think
clearly violates the First Amendment of the Constitution. Like, even though clearly
they don't care.
You can, like, you are literally saying you can't criticize the state. You can criticize the United States. All states do things that are evil
Everybody
and wicked
froze.
and have to be criticized. Now, am I frozen?
No, we're all right.
We're good. We're good. We hear you. We hear you. We hear you.
Mobilization. It's been incredible mobilization to check that bill too. But if the lives of the mobilizers are not valued or treated with the same respect, we're seeing bipartisan likelihood in support for this bill to become law. This will be like the 12th state in the country to push one of these bills. We had Wasim Kanan on this a little while ago too. So this is right on time with that.
So this bill that literally outlaws and punishes by fines criticisms of a state, a nation state. Like, if we believe in the First Amendment, right, you got to be able to criticize a state, right? You can't criticize Zionism. Zionism is a political ideology. You can't criticize it. I can criticize feminism. I can criticize Marxism. I can criticize capitalism. I can't criticize Zionism. Like, at a certain point, you got to be like, no, this is absolutely crazy, right? Like, we believe in free speech. And now, like on a very basic ACLU level, right? Like you should be able to criticize an actual government, like a whole nation state that goes to war, that does controversial things, like beats up a black kid who's an activist and apparently seemingly singles them out. But no, we can't talk about it. We can't criticize. We're going to be fined, labeled as being anti-Semitic and a fine. I think that it is a caricature. Like what the right is doing is a caricature of identity politics, right? I think they hate identity politics, obviously, right? I think that they have not liked the way that they perceive that it has been weaponized against them, and that they are definitely using their version of anti-Semitism to weaponize identity politics in ways that get people to stop thinking, right? Like their criticism of the way that Black people were like, "Oh, you're a racist," right? And then that stops the conversation. It's difficult to continue the conversation when that happens in terms of the pursuit of certain types of identity politics. You're sexist, you're racist, you're homophobic, right? Conversation stops and the speech ceases to exist. I think they took the worst traits of the left and they weaponized it, and they weaponized it in a way that is clearly trolling, right? It is clearly like when you just sit back and think, like, you're criticizing a state. Why can't you criticize the state? Why can't you criticize the political ideology? Like, you're talking about criticism. Are you that fragile that you?
Well, we are at a very dangerous point right now. I mean, we're faced with full-on fascism. Y'all always ask the question about about rap. Who's your favorite hip hop artist? And I always give the answer, Gil Scott-Heron. But I remember on his album, Winter in America, and in the song by the same name, the album came out in 1974. He said, "Our democracy is ragtime on the corner, hoping for some rain." He said, "The Constitution is a crumbled piece of paper. Now, he said that in 1971, and he was in 74, excuse me, and he was saying that in relationship to Richard Nixon. Because, see, fascism has always been with us.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the vampire system, right? I'm gonna be silly now, right? You know, you got the vampires.
Not really.
And if you know about vampires, there's always a head vampire. You know, and for years, a lot of us were running around saying that South Africa was the head vampire, not realizing that this is the head vampire. This is the vampire that created all the other vampires. Right. That this whole system, you know, is literally here. Like, you know, if I had said 40 years ago, if I had gone into a school as a teacher, because, you know, I'm a certified social studies teacher. Many people don't know that because they would never hire me. The school system that I was a board member for would not hire me once I graduated from Princeton and had a black superintendent. They would not hire me. No, graduate of Princeton, certified social studies teacher, grades 6 through 12. In the Urban Teachers Program at Princeton University. So if I had said in 1971, not 71, when did I graduate? In 1978, if I was in teaching in Newark School and said that the American Revolution was not fought because there was taxation without representation. The American Revolution was fought because Britain had outlawed the international slave trade, and the founders of the country, who were all slave holders, feared that King George was going to abolish slavery in the colonies. If I had said that in 1978, I would have been run out. They would have fired me. They'd be like, you can't teach that. And it'd be black people too. It wouldn't have been like some racist white chairman of the department. It'd be no, you can't, because you're going to get me in trouble and I'm going to lose my job. You know, it's like this whole thing we got to unlearn. It's just like with Israel, right? You know, I grew up in the church. I remember when I was at Arts High School, and I had a friend, his name was Henry. He was a member of the Black Panther Party in Newark. He came to school. This is probably like 1969, 70. He came to school with a keffiyeh on. This is in 1970. I said, Henry, what's that you got on? And he said, it's a keffiyeh. He said, it's a keffiyeh because it looked like a shawl to me, right? I said, what's that shawl you got on? Then he started talking about the struggle of the Palestinian people and how they're fighting against racist Israel. And I'm like, I went to Mount Calvary Baptist Church. I went to Way of the Cross Pentecostal Church. You know, the Jews were the chosen people. Israel is the Holy Land. And it took me years to try to abandon the mythology and to understand that Israel is a colonial project. That the persons who left Europe, they are Europeans. They came and took and displaced a whole nother people. I actually saw a newsreel of President Truman trying to explain. He had a board, chalkboard and everything. This is the president of the United States trying to explain how they would have to remove 5 million Palestinians and replace them with 5 million Jews from Europe. And the president stood there and said, I don't think that's going to be easy. You know, it took me forever to abandon everything I had been taught And the truth of the matter is that they have not been, this oppression of the Palestinians didn't start. It started in 1917. It started with the Irgun and with other militias that the Jews had organized way before 1948 to get the Palestinians out. And so in a way, the Jews got, not the Jews, but the Israelis, they got caught in a trick bag because they were trying essentially to carry out something that was really the product of an earlier century or centuries, because the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians the same thing that European settlers in this country did to the Native Americans. The problem was they waited till the 20th century to do it. Now, if they had done it in the 19th century, when we didn't have mass communication and radio and all this other stuff, they would probably got away with it. But they waited until literally when all the other anti-colonial struggles were going on to decide, now we're going to do this. And, you know, they didn't initially choose Israel. They were looking for a place. You think they, oh, that's a holy land. We go, no, they looked at Uganda. They looked at places in Africa. They looked at places in South America where they were going to, you know, try to put on their colonial project. So now, yes, human rights groups in South Africa, human rights groups in Israel are condemning the genocide. But goddamn, 100,000 people have been killed. I'm not gonna give them no awards. It's you know, and some of our elected officials are just a disgrace. I mean, I can't have anyone in office trying to lecture me and trying to convince me that they are somehow the paragon of virtue, when in fact they voted for every military appropriation that Israel asked for to carry out this genocide.
And how much did they add to customs and ICE?
Right.
Right.
You know,
right.
And you know, we could go on and on, but here's the rub. What are Black people doing? What are we doing? You know, the other day, I know this is going to sound strange, right? We were marching in Newark because every year Pop observes the anniversary of the 1967 Newark Rebellion.
Right.
And, you know, we chant all kind of things, you know, because there's all kinds of problems. And so we chant on this and we chant on that. We chant on Palestine. We chant against genocide. But when it came to Black issues, people didn't have no chance.
Wow.
You know, it's not that they didn't want to chant. You got to understand what I'm saying here. It's not they did not want to chant. It's that they didn't have the words to chant. Like, what are the chants that relate to Black people besides stop police brutality?
Right.
Or beside no justice, no peace?
Right.
What are the chants that sum up in a few words the racist oppression that Black people are still suffering from in America today? Here's an interesting fact. When the 1967 rebellions occurred, there was an 18% poverty rate in Newark, and that was considered astronomical. Do you know what the poverty rate is today? It's 27%.
Wow.
There are more poor Black people in Newark today than there were during the rebellion of 1967.
Wow.
What are we doing? We are an oppressed people. And I march and I fight for all international, I fight against all the oppression of all peoples. But what about our fight? They are literally erasing us. Black people are being erased. When they erase our history, they erase us.
Right.
They are erasing our history from the schools. They are erasing our history from the museums. They are erasing our history from government. And in essence, they are erasing us.
You have helped to try to form in meetings in Trenton and in different parts of New Jersey. You have been helping to organize a meeting on a Black agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in light of this current governor's race.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In light of the conversation, what we've been talking about, what is
Can't hear you.
What is the purpose of the Black agenda, and will it actually determine who we will support for governor?
Well, okay, we had a convention, and I'm glad you raised this because I'm proud to report, Ed Riley, I'm proud to report that I'm reporting to you, General Riley, that in short order, we are going to publish the resolutions that were passed at the convention. We're going to publish it in a booklet. In fact, I got the PDF for the booklet yesterday. It's going to be over 50 pages of resolutions. And yes, in one sense, it's a Black agenda because many of the resolutions deal with Black folk, but it's also a people's agenda. It's the resolutions that came out of the Martin Luther King Convention for Justice and Resistance. And once it's published, we're going to present it to the gubernatorial candidates.
To both of them.
And we're going to ask them to respond to it. We're not only going to present it to the gubernatorial candidates, we're going to present it to the state and federal representatives. And we'll see what happens. And the irony is that it took us a while to do this because there were so many amendments to the resolutions at the convention. See, we wanted to avoid that. We tried to set up a process where people would formulate the resolutions and amend them before the convention. And then when we got to the convention, there was 100 amendments, 100, what do you call them? Amendments, yes, to the resolutions. So it took us a time to collect all the amendments to, get it all squared away. I want to thank Sister Robin Spencer. She did a yeoman's job making that happen. And the PDF, the first draft of the document, is going to be published with a cover. It's going to be nice. But the question is, are we going to be able to make our elected officials do something? Now, on the other hand, you have Mayor Ross Baraka, who has had 2 meetings on a Black agenda this summer. He had one in June, which was at the Greater Mount Zion AME Church in Trenton. And he had one in July, which was at the Second Baptist Church in Long Branch, New Jersey. He also says that he's going to produce a document. But it was interesting. I was at both meetings because I support his process too. And remember, we had the gubernatorial candidates at the convention where these resolutions were passed. So he was at the convention. He said something very interesting in the Long Branch meeting. He said at one point, well, maybe we shouldn't just limit it to Black resolutions. Maybe we should, it should be an agenda for all the people, something to that effect. I'm not going to try to quote him. You have to have him say what he said. But in essence, he was saying, it appeared to me that he was thinking not just of a Black agenda, but agenda to address the needs of all the people. But we're going to come out with our book. It's going to probably be published sometime. I hope it'll be published within the next, at least before Labor Day. And we put it in everybody's hand. There were 275 delegates at the convention. We're going to make sure that every delegate was there, gets a copy of the agenda. We're also going to put it in what is it called? We're going to put it in a PDF form so people can look at it electronically also. But this whole push for an agenda is a good thing, because these agendas become instruments of accountability. You know, when they come around, you got your agenda, you open it up. You know, what's your position on the minimum wage? We passed a resolution calling for not a minimum wage, a living wage. Where do you stand on that? Instead of because these candidates come around and a lot of the discussion becomes very amorphous, and very effervescent. It's like the head on beer, it disappears. The fizz in the soda, it disappears. So these documents, these agendas become instruments of accountability. But let me say this. I know it's almost time to go. I'm not making my position a secret, and I'm not going to dilly-dally. We have a fascist movement in this country. The president is the head of that fascist movement, and anybody that he endorses, I oppose. Okay. It's as simple as that. And he's endorsed Chatoyer. And not only that, if you check the NJ.com, Chatoyer was going around campaigning with someone who was one of the January 6th criminals that was pardoned by Donald Trump. So Chatoyer has to be defeated. Right now, Mikey Sherrill has, according to the polls, I wouldn't put all my money on the polls, but according to the polls, she does have a slight lead over Chatoyer and has had one for most of the summer. But it's the summer. We all know that this thing is going, get geared up after Labor Day. But we have our work cut out for it. There are only 2 gubernatorial elections, Virginia and New Jersey. And the outcome of those elections will, in fact, set the pace for the midterms that will come in just 6 months, 2026.
Larry, just a question on this, right? Because when it came to the document that showed that like less than 2% of all contracts go to African Americans, some insane low number, right?
Yes.
And to my mind, right, and I could be wrong about this, the first to speak about changing that was Chatoyer when he put out a press conference on that. He said the first thing he would address it by executive order, and that Governor Murphy should already been doing something like that.
But let me say this, Jonathan, on this issue, because this is an old issue.
Right.
This issue, and Ed knows this because Ed is a lawyer, this issue is not going to be corrected with an executive order. They can issue 10 executive orders. This is a structural problem. If we were getting 1% of the contracts when there was affirmative action, what percentage do you think we're going to have next year?
Right.
But it's an issue. It's an issue, and I understand. I'm going to give you a perspective on this. I support Black business. I support Black business from a principled position because I think Black people should have their own businesses. I support entrepreneurship. I think we should patronize Black businesses. I think we should teach our children business. I think we should establish business. But I know that establishing businesses in and of itself is not going to fundamentally change the condition of Black people. Because if it would fundamentally change the condition of Black people, it would have been changed already. And the other problem is racism, which is really at the root. Because when we get a foot up, they burn it down.
Right.
There wasn't one Black Wall Street. There was 100 Black Wall Streets. So we understand that the civil rights legislation, the Civil Rights Act of 1965, in part, and the Voting Rights Act to a degree, but most of all, the Civil Rights Act. It was John Kennedy, I believe, I could be wrong, it was John Kennedy that first used the term affirmative action, that affirmative action had to be taken on the issue of racial inequality in the United States. And so affirmative action policies were developed based on the Civil Rights Act because Black people were not getting contracts, not because they were not qualified, but because they were being discriminated against.
Right.
So we had what was called set-aside, minority set-aside programs, which was affirmative action in business. But what happened? What happened was the National Construction Companies Association went to court to fight against minority set-asides. Right. And there was a famous case called Richmond versus Croson. Now, before the Richmond versus Croson case, you had people like Maynard Jackson, who was in Atlanta,
right,
who was going to town, giving out contracts. Black contractors got a big slice of the construction pie on the ATL airport. But that was before Richmond versus Croson. In fact, the success of Jackson in creating those millionaires may have been one of the motivating factors for these people to go and challenge.
right,
So they went into court, Richmond versus Croson, and what happened? The court decided in favor of the contractors and said that affirmative action had to be narrowly tailored. I know about this because I worked in that department. And from that point on, that was the closing of the window. Because in narrowly tailoring, what you get is another form of discrimination. You got a whole lot of other reasons than why these contracts can't be given out. And so you had Richmond versus Croson in construction. And then what was that followed by? That was followed by the Bakke case. So, and y'all know what happened in the Bakke case. Bakke sued because they said that affirmative action in higher education was discriminating against white people.
right.
And what did the Supreme Court rule? Supreme Court ruled then that there could not be racial quotas. So that narrowed the number, but still, even with the window being narrowed by Bakke, a lot of Black people still got through. So what did they do? They kept going back again and again and again. And then 2 years ago, Supreme Court eliminated all affirmative action in higher education, except for what? Affirmative action in military schools.
Right.
So this problem is not going to be corrected by executive orders.
That's right.
It's going to have to be federal. We're going to have to do Dred Scott all over again. Because what happened in the Dred Scott case? Dred Scott was 1957, 3 years before the Civil War. Justice Tawney, speaking on behalf of the court, said Black people have no rights that white people are bound to respect.
And that
So
was about
essentially
citizenship.
slavery was going to stay in place. So what happened 3 years later? There's a civil war. What happened 4 years later? 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Even though the Supreme Court said we had no rights, there was a struggle that said, yes, we did have rights. And so now we're back. We're almost back there. And we're going to have to literally fight all of this stuff all over again.
All over again.
And we're going to see people. I remember I was on a panel over in Brooklyn a couple of years ago. It was, what's that festival they have over there, the Black Festival, the African Arts Festival?
Oh, yeah. Africa,
they have the Commodore Barry Park, and I was
every July, around July 4th.
Right. I was on a panel over there, and this might have been right after the Supreme Court decision. And this brother said, I don't care about the Supreme Court decision because I don't need no affirmative action. Well, maybe he didn't in particular, but I know I needed affirmative action. If it hadn't been affirmative action, I wouldn't have went to college.
Right.
If it hadn't been for the Higher Education Act, I wouldn't have went to college.
Right.
If it hadn't been for financial aid, if it wasn't for the Civil Rights Act, there would have never been a financial aid. If it hadn't been for the Civil Rights Act, there wouldn't have been Title I program. It's called Title I because it's literally the first title of the Civil Rights Act of 1965.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know this history. We only know the ancient history. And we only know the slavery history. We don't really know our contemporary history.
Right.
And there's a whole attitude, like I think we made a fundamental mistake in not fighting harder for affirmative action. Because there were people who were preaching against affirmative action. We don't need affirmative action. We need to do for ourselves. Well, why can't we have both? Why can't we have our own and have affirmative action? And the irony is, a lot of the people that were saying we didn't need affirmative action, they went to school, they went to college, and their kids went to college because of affirmative action. But they don't want to talk about that. Because it's like people, it's like the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? They say don't vote. But yet voting changed government, and a lot of them got jobs because of it.
Right.
They didn't shake the tree to make the fruit fall, but they come around and they benefit from that.
Right. And I think that one of the things that people always got it twisted is that the reason why there weren't a lot of Black people before affirmative action in these colleges, it wasn't because there weren't a lot of brilliant Black people, it's because structurally we were left out. Like they weren't
because of racism.
Right. They weren't recruiting.
Bruce, listen. Bruce Wright, get his book.
Right.
Black Robes, White Justice.
Yep.
He was from New York. He got accepted at Princeton University in the 1940s.
Right.
He was in the class or in the matriculation ceremony or something. And they called his name. He raised his hand. They call his name. He raised his hand. They call his name. He said, I'm Bruce Wright. They told him, we don't accept no Black people here. You can't go here. Read his book.
Right.
It was racism.
Right.
And it's funny because it's like we lost our tongue. It's like we don't know how to articulate our situation right now in this 21st century, because they walking all over our stuff. And they just say these things and nobody challenges them. No, the Pentagon, we're not going to have any DEI because it's reverse discrimination. It's not reverse discrimination. We were discriminated against and laws had to be passed to stop y'all from discriminating. We were the most qualified and kept from the job because of our Black skin.
Right.
Trump eliminated the executive order because, you know, DC was a little kind of accommodating at one point, and Black and white people worked together in the same offices of the federal government.
After years of
and then Woodrow Wilson is elected.
Right.
And Woodrow Wilson issued, now there's an executive order, issues an executive order racially separating the Black and white workers in the federal government.
Right.
So, it's going to be interesting. I'm tell you something else. I was looking at I went up to the pop office the other day. Is it time to go? I don't want to be wearing people out. People don't want to hear me droning on.
It is time to go, but
I was in the pop office the other day, right? This week. And I have it right here. I picked up a packet. I picked up 2 packages. And in this packet, we used to have membership orientation for pop. So we used to give out these packets to new members, which showed like all the different articles and stuff that pop was, in the news. And I was looking at this packet and I was looking at the pictures and I was like, damn, because all the people at the protests were Black. All the protests were almost all Black. Like if there was a white person in the march, they would stand out like a sore thumb. And now we marching and we got as many white people marching with us as we do Black people. I'm not against the march and the white people marching with us. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But Black people must reassume our revolutionary role in this society.
There you go. That's the
We are the catalytic agent. And John, you know this as a school teacher.
Right.
In chemistry, there's something called the catalytic agent. That when you put a bunch of chemicals together, you got one other chemical that you add to cause a chain reaction, a chemical reaction. And I fear that somehow we are slipping in terms of being that revolutionary agent. And yes, we have Black Lives Matter, and yes, the Black students, yes. But I'm not necessarily talking about the students.
Right.
I'm talking about adults.
Right.
But maybe what Marcus Garvey said. He said, when all else fails, conditions will organize the people. So maybe it just has to get so damn bad that you can't go out of your house without that's what happened in the 60s. That's what happened in 67. We couldn't walk down the street without being accosted by the police. Our women were working in white people's homes and getting sexually harassed and then having to come home and tell their husbands about it. And their husbands not being able to do nothing about it. Our children being insulted in school, called stupid. And being kept, in the North, they may not have had racially segregated school, but they had tracking. Remember tracking, Jonathan?
Well, it's still going on. Like South Orange, Maplewood, a lot of these places.
I know parents today that have gone to school. I'm talking about South Orange and Maplewood now.
Right.
And demanded that their children be put on the college track.
Right.
Because they putting our children, look at our little boys being labeled ADHD, being labeled with all kind of deficiencies just because they're more active. And they're more active because they got more melanin. Mm-hmm. They got more testosterone. Maybe boys learn differently from girls. Maybe boys have to have more hands-on stuff. But our boys get labeled uncontrollable.
Right.
ADHD, mentally retarded. I have a friend. He's dead now. He went to Princeton too, Ed. He graduated from West Side. Let's just say he did not distinguish himself academically. So he went back to college after some years. He was out in the world for a while, and then he decided He's going to go to Princeton. And he got his records, his transcripts. And he told me he altered his transcripts.
Oh, wow.
And he was accepted.
Wow.
And you know what else? He graduated cum laude. And you know what else? He got accepted to Harvard after Princeton. So all this stuff they do, these tests and all that stuff, it's designed to hold us back and to hold us down.
You know, Larry, I want to tell you, what I think the real issue is going on with Black folks. And I've been thinking about this for quite a while. I think the real issue is leadership right now. You remember when we were making progress, we had Black leaders, right? We might have disagreed. It might have not have been any unity, any real uniformity, but we had Black leaders, right?
Right.
Don't have today is we don't have Black leadership. We have that concept from Black Lives Matter where everybody's a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is that everybody don't know the way.
Well,
and one of the things the Bible says, it says my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, right?
Right.
And you see that coming into fruition right now, because most of us are not well studied. Most of us get our information right online. We're not reading books. Young people today don't even know how to go into a library and actually pull a book from a library, right?
Man, don't say that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that leadership, somebody leading them, right, and guiding them and helping them along the way, right? Remember, if Reverend Jackson was healthy, Reverend Jackson's voice would be very loud right now, right?
Yes.
But he's not well, and so therefore, just like Muhammad Ali, he's been silenced, and so we don't have his voice. One of the big problems we have with Reverend Sharpton is that a lot of what Sharpton is today is he's been co-opted, right? Because he has a television program on MSNBC, he can't say and go but so far, right? And so what leaders do we really have? Who's really? Minister Farrakhan is going into his mid-90s now, right? And his health is not really that well, and so he hasn't really programmed, or should I say, he hasn't really passed the baton on to a younger minister. And there are some inside the Nation of Islam that could do that, but he has not passed that baton on. So we don't have leadership.
Yep.
That's my opinion.
And you ain't gonna get no argument out of me, Ed.
Right.
Leadership is important.
And this is definitely a conversation we have to continue. Chairman Hamm, we definitely, we're gonna have you back, right? Because as I said, every time we're on, we learn. And I knew that. We're gonna learn today. It's gonna be some good. It's gonna be good today. So definitely appreciate you.
Your show was great. Your show was great today. It fired me up.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate
it. From Cuba to Newark. I was like, wow, look at this.
Well, we received that. And we will definitely have you back real soon. As always, we'll have you back real soon because the stuff that you discuss is the stuff that we need to hear. So we'd like to thank all of our guests that came on tonight. And we'd like to thank Obi Egbuna and Onyesonwu Chatoyer from talking about Cuba's medical
Chris
brigade.
Came in too. Chris Durden
There he is as well. We'd like to thank Hasan Kirby for Men's Against Domestic Violence and coming on. We also like to thank Vivian Cox Frasier, the CEO of the Urban League, of the Urban League of Essex County, and Darrin, Sharif, the executive director of the Urban League of Essex County Newark Kids Code Tech House. And also a big shout out to Lisa Durden for helping to arrange and put together that segment. So shout out to the award-winning filmmaker and journalist Lisa Durden for that. And of course, thank you to Lawrence Hamm, chairman of the People's Organization for Progress, for enlightening us in the last part of this show. So thank you.
And for putting it on the record.
Yes. Keep it on the record. So thank you.
Peace.
And, until next week, peace.
Peace.
All right.
Don't stop.
That's right.